Chapter 2038. Lian Huahan was very indifferent towards this. She felt that Huang Linger was a troublemaker and did not care at all. Saint Qianma could only sigh softly and did not say anything else. Otherwise she would be too protective. Every path had its own side. This is not your sect's territory. It's a public area. Can't you allow others to follow you? Huang Linger's expression did not change. She said goodbye to Lian Huahan and Saint Qianma and boarded the flying boat. They continued to fly towards the east in search of the flaming red frog. Zhao Feifei followed them on her sword. Behind her were a few fellow soul formation cultivators. They wanted to find evidence that Huang Linger was hiding her cultivation level. As long as Huang Linger's cultivation level was strong, they could explain Yan Beifei's sudden death. The murderer would be Huang Linger. After activating the shield restriction, Huang Linger looked at Zhang Tian and said worriedly, "This is troublesome. With her watching you'll be exposed sooner or later. But if you attack you'll also be exposed." Zhao Feifei should have activated the surveillance Dharma device so that she could transmit Zhang Tian and Huang Linger's every move to Yan Nanxian. In other words, once Zhang Tian was exposed, Zhang Tian would have to face Yan Nanxian, who was a half-saint, or the entire Tianluo sect's experts. Thinking of this, Sima Tu's face was filled with fear. He said with a trembling voice, "This is troublesome. I'm afraid I'll have to die with you." Zhang Tian took out a green wine pot from his bosom and sipped a mouthful of fruit wine. He exhaled a breath with a sweet smell of wine and said lazily, "That's right. Don't worry. Sometimes I don't have to do anything if I want someone to die. I've said that I've been to this area many times. I have the advantage of the terrain." He patted Sima Tu's shoulder and smiled. Sima Tu was skeptical. His expression was terrible and his heart was in a mess. He was in no mood to care about Zhang Tian. There seems to be human cultivators fighting in front," Sima Tu suddenly exclaimed. "Let's go and take a look." Zhang Tian had long seen two factions facing each other in a valley. There were hundreds of cultivators on each side and the atmosphere was tense. Zhang Tian recognized one of them. It was Lin Yang and Fang Goyu. There were already several corpses lying on the ground. The other side was the Qishan sect, one of the top 20 sects in the continent. Among them a few forces mediated. Zhang Tian did not enter immediately. Instead he landed on a mountain peak in the periphery. There were dozens of cultivators watching and discussing. "What's going on? Why are they arguing?" "Hey." General Lin Yang led a team to hunt down a 5-colored iron-back flying centipede. They had already surrounded it and beaten it half to death. They were about to capture it. At this moment the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, suddenly appeared with a group of people and beheaded the centipede. Now both sides are fighting over this centipede. 5-colored iron-back flying centipede? This is a very rare demonic beast. It can concoct pills and refine weapons. It's priceless. No wonder they're fighting. In my opinion, the Qishan sect is too despicable. They're always scavenging. Previously our sect caught a 4-tailed golden fur mouse. Damn it, we chased it for 300,000 miles. We were so tired that we vomited blood and so was the golden fur mouse. In the end they snatched it away. That's right. The Qishan sect is known as a scavenger sect. They like to watch others fight to the death. They secretly pick up equipment. When our Waterfall sect fought with Qingsong Fort last year they also picked up a lot of treasures. Too shameless. Our Blood Scythe sect was also scavenged by them. Us too. For a moment the entire place was filled with condemnation. It seemed that the Qishan sect had indeed angered everyone. In the field the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, said without any shame. "You just said that you beat this centipede half to death and took credit for it. Without you I wouldn't have been able to kill it. I can also say that I met it half a year ago and beat it until it was on the verge of death. How can you be a human? You can't be too greedy and want to take advantage of everything. If you really have the ability you should have killed it." Lin Yang was so angry that he vomited blood. He said coldly, twisting the truth and slandering others. "Do you have any shame? If you hadn't suddenly attacked we would have killed it in a matter of seconds. This time I won't argue with you. I still have to continue scavenging, oh no, slaying demons and demons." Su Jiahao smiled coldly and said threateningly, "But if you interfere with me again I won't be polite." "Forget it. Lin Yang, they have more people. We can't take advantage of them." Lin Yong was about to explode when Fang Guoyu stopped him. However, although Lin Yong was angry, he also knew that Fang Guoyu's words were not without reason. They did have many soul formation cultivators. He sighed, then pulled himself together and waved his hand. Let's go, let's continue. You want to fight with me? You're still too young. In this world there's no treasure that I can't pick up, no waste that I can't pick up. Su Jiahao was so proud that he laughed with his hands on his hips. This was the sect's motto. They were not ashamed of the disgust and disdain around them. Instead they were proud of it. Jiang Tian stood on the flying boat and narrowed his eyes as he slowly opened his mouth and said, Your Qishan sect is simply a nest of maggots and a swarm of flies. Seeing a bit of sweetness and a bit of feces, you all pounce on it. My grandfather, it's not enough for you to offend the Tianluo sect. Do you want to offend the Qishan sect? Beside him, Sima too was so scared that he almost fainted. Who is this? Who dares to offend the Qishan sect? Yes. Looking at his robe and his lack of cultivation, he should be a servant hired by the Luoying sect? Is he courting death? Not only him but everyone present looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a madman. Although the Luoying sect emphasized love and equality, and would probably protect a servant in this critical juncture. However, they could protect him for a while, but they couldn't protect him forever. When they got out of the canyon, wouldn't it be easy for them to find a chance to kill you? Huang Linger was also puzzled, but she immediately understood. Oh, I understand. Back then, Jiang Tian lived in the Eastern Empire for a period of time and was friends with Lin Yong and the others. She thought that Jiang Tian was trying to help his friends. However, it wasn't that simple. At this moment, Jiang Tian was trying to provoke more enemies. There were more uses later. Bastard, are you courting death? A little servant dares to provoke me. When Su Jiahao heard this, he immediately flew into a rage. He was often insulted, but this was the first time he had been insulted as badly as Jiang Tian. Bastard, don't talk nonsense. If you can kill your grandfather, you're capable. Baba, what's going on? If I'm your grandfather, wouldn't I be a fly too? Jiang Tian put his hands in his sleeves, like a street gangster, a idler in a village, so angry that he almost vomited blood. Kill him. Even if Saint Qianma asks, I'm in the right. A servant insulted me like this. If I don't kill him, should I wait? Su Jiahao shouted angrily and waved his hand, leading hundreds of cultivators towards Jiang Tian. Chapter 2039. Let's go. Jiang Tian retreated into the flying boat and shouted. Okay. Huang Linger seemed to have woken up from a dream and controlled the flying boat to run away. At this time, Zhao Feifei also caught up and asked, Su Zongzi, what's going on? Why did you? Damn it, this damn servant dares to scold me. He's going too far. Su Jiahao immediately gave a concise explanation and then asked, What are you guys doing? This person is strange. Could it be that Beifei's death is related to him? Zhao Feifei's attention was focused on Jiang Tian for the first time and she frowned. Hearing the question, she came back to her senses and said, Among the three of them, one of them might have killed my husband. What? Su Jiahao was shocked and then said, Then we can't let them go. He immediately chased after them. 100 miles away in a floating fortress, hundreds of nascent soul cultivators stood on their swords and guarded the entire sky. Their murderous aura was so dense that not even a fly could get past them. On the wall of the fortress, a man and a woman were strolling. The man was tall and mighty. He was wearing a dragon robe and a flat crown. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a straight nose and a square mouth. He was extremely handsome. Each and every one of his movements was full of discipline, unrestrained and domineering, as if he was a natural-born emperor. It was the Yichang Emperor. The woman next to him was wearing purple crystal armor. She had a graceful figure and exquisite curves, giving people a sense of fitness and strength. Especially her pair of long legs, they were even more eye-catching. It was Princess Mou. Mou, the East and Mou countries used to be at war in history, but that was because the mortal empires were plundered and exploited by the hidden sections. Resources were scarce and they had no choice but to fight among themselves. The Yichang Emperor spoke with confidence and assurance. But now the empire has changed to a county system and is thriving. Its potential has been stimulated and it already has the capital to compete with the hidden sections. We should forget the disputes in history, Put aside the disputes and work together to fight against the hidden sects. Mou shook her head gently and smiled. The East Empire has been poor and weak for many years. It has just recovered and is now recuperating. It doesn't want to provoke any forces and only wants to develop itself. The Yechang Emperor chuckled. Mou, you're too childish. Do you think you can develop peacefully just because you want to? Ever since the reform of the prefectures and counties, the power of the secular empires had risen. They had already become a thorn in the side of the sects. Now we have to strike first to gain the upper hand. Mou smiled bitterly. This isn't something that I can decide alone. The entire Eastern royal family thinks the same way. The Yechang Emperor pondered for a while, but his gaze suddenly became gentle and affectionate. Mou, even if you don't have the heart to fight against the hidden sects, the alliance between our two countries is necessary. Alliance? Of course. Mou smiled. However, the two countries must reach a consensus in certain aspects. Otherwise, there will be no basis for an alliance. Mou, I still have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it or not. The Yacheng Emperor smiled. You've always been an upright person. How can you be so sloppy? There's no harm in saying it. Mou didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In my opinion, the best alliance is a marriage alliance. If we become Dao companions, I'll definitely make you my empress and dote on you for the rest of your life. Emperor Yacheng said affectionately. Let's not talk about this anymore. Mou shook her head gently, but her tone was very firm. For some reason, Jiang Tian's figure and that unscrupulous smile instantly appeared in her mind. Why? The Yacheng Emperor's face was surprised, and immediately revealed a look of realization. Don't tell me you still miss that imperial advisor Xiqing? Let's not talk about this anymore. Why? The Yacheng Emperor was very unwilling. He felt that Eastern Lu and the entire Eastern royal family except for Mou were all trash. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of imperial advisor Xiqing more than 10 years ago, suppressing the feudal lords, sweeping through the demon race and reforming the county system, the Eastern Empire would have long collapsed. He had an idea. After marrying Mou, he would provoke her ambition bit by bit, get rid of Eastern Lu and establish her as the empress. Then the Eastern Empire would also be his and they could even merge into one. Why? Is there a need to ask? Because you're too ugly. Suddenly, a voice filled with disdain could be heard coming from the distance. Eldest Princess Mou covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly, destroying the atmosphere. On the other hand, the Yacheng Emperor was furious. Who dares to disturb my palace? Hunt him down. Immediately. Whoosh. The Yacheng Emperor's guards, numbering more than 100 people, were basically above the nascent soul realm. There were even 3 soul formation realm experts leading the way, and they chased after Jiang Tian's flying ship. You can't catch up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The small flying ship was unleashed to the extreme, and the sound of it breaking through the air was ear-piercing. It streaked across the sky and shuttled between the mountains and steep ridges. What's going on? I don't know. Could it be that there's some treasure on that flying ship? Let's catch up and take a look. For a moment, the scene became incomparably spectacular, and a few more sects joined in the fun. Countless cultivators followed Jiang Tian, looking like a group of big cats chasing a mouse. Sima too was scared silly when he saw this scene. He felt that Jiang Tian was a scammer. Along the way, he courted death and provoked many people, and many forces chased after him frantically. The Yacheng Emperor was just one of them. Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine gently and said unhurriedly, "Air faster. Go a little faster. You look like you're running for your life in a panic." "Oh, you're wrong. What do you mean by look like? It's obviously him." Sima too wanted to cry but had no tears. He only felt that teaming up with Jiang Tian was the stupidest decision in his life. "Yes, I understand." Huang Linger responded and controlled the flying ship, as if she was running for her life in a panic. She broke all the giant trees along the way and fell into the water. When she crossed the mountains and ridges, she even caused huge rocks to roll. She looked panicked and frightened. The way she hid and fled made the cultivators chasing after her even bolder. For a moment, it seemed that Jiang Tian was a rat crossing the street and everyone could step on him. "Kill! Stop that madman!" For a moment, the sound of shouting and killing was earth-shattering, setting off monstrous waves. The chasing teams stretched for hundreds of miles, which was a magnificent sight. This was very rare in the history of exploring the liminal canyon. Because of the existence of the demon race, the forces on the continent were relatively united, so such a large-scale chase was extremely rare. In particular, hundreds and thousands of cultivators chasing after a small flying ship was even more strange. No way. The Qishan sect, the Tianluo sect, the Black Moon Empire, the Feiyun sect. So many forces are chasing after one person? Who is this person? How did he offend so many big shots? Does he want to die? He must be one of those death-seeking experts. When countless cultivators saw this scene, they were extremely shocked and discussed animatedly. None of them dared to believe it. If you don't stop, I'll kill you. Clang. One of the personal guards of the Yachang Emperor, a soul formation realm cultivator, directly attacked Jiang Tian's flying ship. Where do you think you're going? Su Jiahao attacked brazenly. Immediately many cultivators attacked. Dharma treasures and Dao weapons pierced the sky and flew toward the flying ship as if they were free. Kill them. Seeing this, Zhao Feifei also attacked. Originally, she wanted to collect evidence and confirm that Huang Linger was the murderer before killing her. Then the Luoying sect had nothing to say. But now Jiang Tian had offended so many people. If they attacked him together, the law would not be able to control the masses. Zhao Feifei didn't care whether Huang Linger was killed unjustly or not. As the saying goes, she would rather kill by mistake than let go. In an instant, it was as if Jiang Tian and Huang Linger had fallen into a life-and-death situation. Chapter 2040. Ask for help from Saint Qianma. Sima Tu screamed and his face turned pale. Don't panic. Jiang Tian was calm and composed. Under the guidance of Jiang Tian, Huang Linger controlled the flying boat agilely. The flying boat was like a butterfly, shuttling through all kinds of Dharma artifacts. Although it was dangerous, it was more frightening than dangerous. At least they didn't suffer any substantial damage. Charge in. Seeing that the time was ripe, Jiang Tian pushed Huang Linger aside, took over the rudder, and drove the flying boat into a no-man's land. No Man's Land was a habitual name for the extremely dangerous area. This kind of place was extremely dangerous. The Dharma of devils was very heavy. The divine sense and Dharma power of the cultivators were restricted. A large number of soul formation realm fiends would appear. Generally speaking, the probability of human soul formation realm cultivators dying in this place was extremely high. Only saints had a chance to protect themselves. Now, seeing that the flying boat had plunged into the no man's land, the cultivators chasing behind were all stunned and stopped in their tracks. Let's go in too. Those nascent soul realm weaklings can go in. What are we afraid of? Seeing this, Su Jiahao was stunned for a moment. Suddenly he raised his arm and led the team in. Let's go in too. Zhao Feifei was even more suspicious of Huang Linger and Jiang Tian. She raised her eyebrows and shouted. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Many cultivators also stepped on their swords and entered. Are we not as good as a woman? The three soul formation realm cultivators, the leaders of the Yachang Emperor's guards, looked at each other and led the cavalry in. Rumble. The cavalry was like a dragon. The cold light shone on their iron clothes. They entered like a tornado with the momentum of a dragon. The royal guards of the Yachang Emperor have entered. The three soul formation realm cultivators are all experienced figures. We shouldn't be afraid. The few forces outside found that there were no fiends or fiend generals, so they immediately let down their guard. Their courage increased and they all rushed in. After entering the no man's land, Huang Linger immediately felt that her divine sense was greatly limited. It was less than 1/10 of the original. In reality, she was not the only one who was like this. Everyone was like this. However, Jiang Tian's soul-devouring soul consciousness was originally a demon soul consciousness, so it was even more beneficial. Its range of observation was instantly doubled and it was even sharper. Even the slightest details could not escape his senses. Moreover, Jiang Tian drove the flying boat even faster than before. It was 10 times faster than before and it was completely silent. Sima Tu was almost scared silly. Yes, he's using his own magic power to accelerate the entire flying boat. Sima Tu suddenly understood, but he was even more shocked. It was as if you saw a person running while carrying a motorcycle, but the person was running faster than the motorcycle. Silently, Jiang Tian shook off his pursuers and observed the terrain with a frown. Soon he entered a dense forest. These plants had obviously been demonized. The branches were grotesquely shaped like the palms of demons. The bark was rugged as if they had eyes that opened and closed. The most terrifying thing was that there were many devil fruits growing on them which looked like skulls. Let's go down. Jiang Tian was the first to jump off the flying boat. He was neither fast nor slow, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Those devil fruits opened their mouths and made a biting action. They stared viciously at the three of them and discussed with each other. Tiskeghe, someone's coming. Them. Don't panic. They have no taste and don't taste good raw. Get some devil fire and roast them until they're medium rare. Sprinkle some black devil chili and they'll be fragrant. Although they were just talking and did not launch any substantial attacks, Sima too, who saw it for the first time, was so scared that his legs went soft. Brother Jiang, let's go back. It's okay. These devil fruits can't hurt people at all. Jiang Tian smiled calmly. He raised his hand and chopped down with his saber, chopping off a devil fruit. Humans are so scary. Quiet. He didn't notice us. Stop trembling. Who's trembling? Seeing this, the devil fruits immediately trembled in fear. They closed their eyes tightly and pretended to be ostriches. Jiang Tian crushed a devil fruit. The red and white jam emitted a pungent smell and splashed all over Huang Linger. Ouch. This is so smelly. Huang Linger couldn't help but pout. She had an aggrieved look on her face like a little girl. It's nothing. With this we'll be safe. Then we'll lure them into the tiger's den and attract their firepower for us. Jiang Tian took a few more devil fruits and crushed them. He smeared jam all over Sima Tu's body before he explained leisurely and smeared jam all over himself and Sima Tu's body. After everyone chased into this no man's land, they did not see Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. Su Jiahao could not help but say angrily, "This old man is so evil. This rotten old man is too bad. His mouth is full of shit. Where is he hiding? Have you become a coward?" After entering the no man's land, they did not see any demon generals or demonic creatures. For a moment, everyone was relieved. Since there are no demonic creatures in the no man's land, we'll find them and kill them even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Zhao Feifei's face was beautiful and her voice was cold. She looked as vicious as the bearded man. "Bastard! Come out, you lowly servant. You're like an ant. How dare you insult our emperor? I'll tear you to pieces. Old man, you're just good at talking. Come out and fight with us if you have the guts. Why don't you dare to come out? Cowardly rats who only know how to hide in the dark are despicable and shameless." The rest of the cultivators were all cursing as they searched. Whoosh. At this moment, everyone saw Jiang Tian driving a flying boat and speeding towards them like a train. "Fellow cultivators, run for your lives. A terrifying demonic beast is about to attack." Jiang Tian shouted. "Do you think I'm scared? Childish." Su Jiahao glared and chased after him crazily with the cultivators of Qishan sect. "Where do you think you're going?" The Yacheng Emperor's iron guards also chased after him like a swarm of bees. "Don't let this old man escape. Stop him. Surround him." Shouts and roars were endless. All the major forces chased after him and pounced on him from all directions. This time Jiang Tian's speed seemed to be a little slower. Soon he was surrounded by these cultivators in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. "Let's see where you can run to this time." Su Jiahao gritted his teeth. "You're useless. You only have a stupid mouth. I'm going to cut off your lips and feed them to the dogs." Zhao Feifei's pretty face also seemed to be covered with 10,000 years of frost. She said coldly, "Huang Ling, tell me the truth. Did you kill my husband? Tell me the truth and I'll leave your corpse intact." "Fellow cultivator Zhao, give me some face. Long live the emperor. I want this old man's head." The 3 soul formation realm guards of the Yacheng Emperor also said coldly. At this moment, all the cultivators present were very arrogant and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he was a lamb that could be slaughtered at any time. "Zhao Feifei, I did kill Yan Beifei." Jiang Tian suddenly chuckled. "How can you admit it? No matter how strong you are, you'll definitely die if they attack you together." At the side, Sima Tu was so scared that he almost fainted. Zhao Feifei's expression changed and endless anger surged in her eyes. She took out her Dharma treasure and was about to attack. "Fellow cultivator, wait. Listen to me." Jiang Tian waved his hand unhurriedly. "All right. Let's see how you're going to deny it." Zhao Feifei was ready to attack. Jiang Tian smiled and said, I can understand that you want to avenge your husband. But don't kill Qingqing. What did you say? Zhao Feifei flew into a rage, but her heart was indeed somewhat vigilant. Since this person was able to kill Yan Beifei without a sound, he must be extremely powerful and unimaginable. I'm here. Do you think you can still turn the tables? Bastard, you'll pay with your life for my sons. At this moment Yan Nanxian also rushed over. His eyes were filled with hatred and he wanted nothing more than to tear Jiang Tian apart. King Yan. Sect Master. We're relieved that you're here. When everyone saw that Yan Nanxian had arrived, they could not help but feel relieved. All of them looked respectful and cupped their fists. Chapter 2041. Yan Nanxian was a half-step void return cultivator and could be called a half-saint. In addition, there were more than a dozen soul formation cultivators present, which was equivalent to a void return saint. In their opinion, Jiang Tian's background was strange, but even if he was made of iron, how many nails could he crush? Sect leader Yan, this has nothing to do with me. Sima too was so scared that he sat on the ground wanting to cry. Yan Nanxian, if you insist on killing me, you will definitely die. Jiang Tian smiled calmly and said, that's right. Why don't you all just leave and keep your lives? Isn't it good to enjoy your next life? Yan Nanxian's face was full of mockery. Nameless scoundrel playing tricks. You're about to die but you're still so stubborn. With a swoosh, the long sword jumped out of the scabbard made of the silver-beard golden-eye dragon's skin and was about to fly toward Jiang Tian. Sigh. I'm just being nice. Actually, I do have a grudge with you that needs to be settled. But after thinking about it, I'll kill you myself another day. I don't want to borrow the hands of others to vent my hatred. But since you don't listen to me and insist on dying, I can only use your blood to dye this demonic land red. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed, looking very helpless. Ah, an old man like you dares to boast so shamelessly. Su Jiahao looked up and laughed. This is the best joke I've heard this year. One of the soul formation guards of the Yechong Emperor also sneered. You're so stubborn. You're about to die but you're still talking nonsense. Zhao Feifei's face was full of disdain. Cultivators were all pragmatic people. Compared to their lives, dignity and face were not worth mentioning. Yan Nanxian's face was livid. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. Die. He said coldly. He was about to release his flying sword. Suddenly, the huge mountain beneath their feet split apart, emitting a huge rumbling sound. Dust flew everywhere and rubble shot through the air. With this loud noise, a vast wave of demonic qi filled the void. Demonic beast. A half-saint. Yan Nanxian was almost scared out of his wits. His face was pale and he was about to step on his sword and fly away. Suddenly, a huge palm shot out from the crack like lightning and grabbed Yan Nanxian like a whirlwind. No. Yan Nanxian was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His precepts surged like a tide and fragments of the great Tao shot out. The Dharma treasures on his body exploded one by one. However, it was useless. His magic power was corroded by the devil qi. Bam. Yan Nanxian was easily crushed and fresh blood spurted out from the gaps between the giant fingers. Pieces of his internal organs poured out from his mouth, and his divine treasures were all shattered. He was already half dead. Rumble. A demonic beast the size of a giant mountain appeared in front of everyone. The demonic beast looked like a giant ape, but there were huge bone spikes protruding from its back. Each of the bone spikes was emitting a black demonic aura, and they pierced into the sky like peerless spears. Moreover, this monster ape had a pair of fleshy wings on its back. Its fascia was tough and when it spread its wings, it covered the sky and covered the sun. There were also dark and murderous demonic claws that turned into iron chains that extended in all directions. They were as if they were real and they made clanking sounds. Yan Nanxian could not resist it all in its hands. He could only desperately beg for mercy. Listening to his miserable howls and looking at his sorry appearance, Jiang Tian felt a burst of joy and relief in his heart. No matter what, I have taken revenge. The boundless hatred in his previous life was like a huge rock in his heart. Now it was finally lifted. This monster ape emitted a demonic aura that seemed to be real like stormy waves. It dispelled magic power, disintegrated Daoist heart and made people's demonic thoughts grow. They were almost instantly assimilated. Under the rolling demonic aura, cultivators fell to the ground one by one. They screamed as they fell and their bodies went limp. On one hand, it was the erosion of the demonic laws. On the other hand, it was purely because they were scared. The spiritual impact was too terrifying. Heaven-carrying demonic ape. Someone screamed, and Wu Bian said in horror, a heaven-carrying demonic ape with 100,000 years of cultivation. It once killed a saint. Huff, huff, worm, white and tender worm. Sweet. The heaven-carrying demonic ape pursed its lips and whistled. It raised its hand and stuffed Xianxia into its mouth, chewed a few times and swallowed him. Run. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. One had to know that Xianxia was a half-saint. However, they were swallowed without being able to put up any resistance. The crowd was even more vulnerable. Whoosh. Su Jiahao was the first to run. He was a scavenger and liked to take advantage of opportunities. He did not do things that would make him lose money. The premise of dealing with Jiang Tian was that there was no risk. Once there was a risk, he would not act brave and ruthless. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. He broke through space as fast as lightning. Because he was often chased and intercepted when he was scavenging, he had mastered many movement and speed secret techniques. However, they were useless. Whoosh. A demonic chain shot out from the void and instantly pierced his divine treasure, nailing him to the ground like a toad. But it hurts. He let out a miserable scream. It was extremely mournful and primitive. Su Jiahao lost his life in a matter of seconds and truly died on this piece of land. Oh my God. The Qishan sect cultivators who were following behind almost peed their pants when they saw this scene. They turned around and ran. Run. Run. The situation took a sudden turn for the worse, and in an instant the numerous cultivators that were originally shouting to kill Jiang Tian were instantly terrified to the point of fleeing in a sorry state, and they were terrified like stray dogs. At this moment the cultivators were shrouded in fear. They only hated that their parents did not give them an extra pair of legs so that they could run faster. Roar. The heaven-carrying demonic ape let out a furious roar. Bone spikes flew out of its body and descended from the sky. Chains of laws swept across the world, leaving a rain of blood wherever they passed. Roar, 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 roar. Help. No. In an instant the no man's land instantly turned into hell. The cultivators were killed one after another. Blood dyed the ground red, and their remains and dharma treasures were scattered everywhere. We can't get out. What should we do? At this moment Zhao Feifei, who was in a dead end, was as pale as a sheet. Her delicate body trembled and her heart was filled with endless fear. She had always bullied the weak and was not weaker than others. She had a strong heart and ruthless means. However, she had never encountered such a terrifying existence. The heaven-carrying demonic ape was extremely powerful. One attack would kill several people and sweep across the area. However, when the cultivators' attacks landed on its body, they were like tickles and were easily disintegrated by the demonic laws. At this moment she regretted it. When she saw that Jiang Tian and the other two were safe and sound, she understood that she had been used by Jiang Tian. He had clearly lured them into the heaven-carrying demonic ape's attack range. It sounded simple, but it revealed that Jiang Tian had an extremely deep understanding of the critical canyon. He was definitely an old demon. She had underestimated him. Only she didn't understand how she had offended such an experienced old devil. Chapter 2042. Form the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Quick, quick, quick. There was no way to escape now. The guards of the Yechang Emperor roared and commanded the cavalry to form a military formation, wanting to kill their way out. Seeing this, Zhao Feifei seemed to see a glimmer of hope in the endless darkness. Her dim eyes shone with hope. The greatest function of a battle formation was to gather sand into a tower and gather cultivation. Perhaps they could really kill their way out. However, the flame of hope in her heart was instantly extinguished by the cruel reality. It was useless. Bang, bang, bang. Bone spikes rampaged, iron chains flew across the sky, and the cavalry formation was instantly destroyed. Blood rained down from the sky and screams rose and fell one after another. The Yechang Emperor's cavalry was instantly wiped out. Not a single one was left, including the 3 soul formation experts. Run. This time not only Zhao Feifei and the others, but also the cultivators who were watching from the outside. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Roar. At this time the demonic ape roared. Many bone spikes seemed to have a mind of their own as they formed the shape of a millstone in the air. It swept across and killed countless cultivators along the way. Finally, it landed heavily on Zhao Feifei's back. Boom. Crack. Zhao Feifei's divine treasures were all shattered. Her entire body exploded like a firework. Her flesh, broken bones, organs, and magic treasures were all set ablaze and scattered with flames. Until her death, her face was still filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness. It was as if she could not accept that her husband and master had all died here in one day. This was the complete extermination of her family. How did you fool my feelings in my previous life? In your eyes, I was an overconfident clown, a toad who wanted to eat swan meat. When Jiang Tian saw this, a faint smile appeared on his face, and a sense of relief appeared in his heart again. Another grudge had been resolved. In his previous life, Zhao Feifei had deceived his feelings and played him like a monkey. She even helped Yan Nanxian take over his body. How much true feelings and how much pretense had completely disappeared with this firework explosion. The millstone was like a giant wheel that crushed the sky. Flesh and blood splattered and screams filled the sky. In seconds, all the disciples of the Tianluo sect were killed. Whoosh! Seeing the cultivators fleeing in all directions, the heaven-carrying demonic ape flapped its wings and chased after them. For a moment, cries for their fathers and mothers rose and fell one after another. All kinds of miserable screams rang out continuously. The cultivators on the periphery fell like rain. They couldn't wait to escape from this hell on earth. However, no matter how fast they would not be able to escape from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's pursuit. The ape was even faster, and the demonic law chains and bone spikes were his long-range weapons. He would not let any of them escape. However, from the beginning to the end, Jiang Tian sat steadily on the fishing platform, not moving at all. The devil ape, on the other hand, did not even look at them from the beginning to the end. At first, Sima too was so scared that he wanted to run away, but later, he stopped moving. Huang Linger couldn't help but worry at first, but now she also let out a long sigh of relief. In the end, Sima too couldn't hold back his curiosity. He looked at Jiang Tian respectfully and asked, "Fellow cultivator, what's going on?" Huang Linger looked at Jiang Tian, who was calm and collected, and said softly, "Is it because of the jam on our bodies? This is the devil fruit. It's just a name that people habitually call it because of its appearance." Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine and said casually, "Actually, it's called the filthy fruit. This fruit contains a special demonic aura that counters the heaven-carrying demonic ape. It's said that after being contaminated or eaten, the demonic law of the heaven-carrying demonic ape will be disintegrated. The bone spikes will smile and the demonic chains will corrode. Therefore the ape can't wait to avoid it." Sima too looked enlightened at first, then he asked, "Filthy fruit? I've never heard of it. How did you know?" Jiang Tian said calmly, "To me it's just common knowledge." Sima too was speechless. He was deeply shocked. Huang Linger asked again, "But how did you know that there's a heaven-carrying demonic ape here? Aren't they most afraid of the filthy fruit?" It's very simple." Jiang Tian smiled helplessly. "The heaven-carrying demonic ape will change its bone spikes every 1,000 years. It's like a snake that needs to shed its skin when it grows up. But the bone spikes are stubborn and difficult to shed. They need this kind of filthy fruit to help them loosen the bone spikes. In short, the demonic ape hates the filthy fruit and doesn't even want to touch it. Naturally, it can protect us. But when it needs to shed its bone spikes, it has no choice but to use it. And you can also see that the filthy fruit here is planted neatly. It's obviously cultivated by the demonic ape. Therefore you can infer that this is the nest of the demonic ape." Jiang Tian said with a smile. "Such demonic beasts of the void return level are usually too lazy to go out and hunt humans. After all, soul formation stage humans are just desserts in their eyes. They are unwilling to leave their nest. But if you go to their nest of your own accord, that's a different matter." Sima too looked at Jiang Tian in shock. He was simply omniscient and omnipotent. He actually knew such rare knowledge. And Huang Linger naturally understood. Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives and had gone through ups and downs for countless years. He had seen countless demonic beasts and was naturally familiar with their habits. In fact, that was indeed the case. Not to mention demonic beasts of the void return level, Jiang Tian had even kept stronger demonic beasts as pets. These little tricks were really nothing to him. Run for your lives. In this no man's land, Countless human cultivators were killed, but Jiang Tian had no sympathy. They were here to kill him in the first place, so they deserved to die. In this area, screams were extremely ear-piercing. The heaven-carrying demonic apes battle was also earth-shattering. Don't go over. Demonic beasts of the void return level can suppress sages. That's right, it's a heaven-carrying demonic ape. Don't even mention how terrifying it is. The sect has ordered that this beast likes to hibernate in its nest. It's safe as long as it doesn't enter the no man's land. No one is allowed to enter. Retreat immediately. Even the cultivators within a few thousand miles of the no man's land had heard the news and retreated one after another. So many soul formation cultivators have died. The Tianluo sect has been annihilated. Yan Nanxian's family of 3 loved to bully others. Great, now they're all dead. The Qishan sect is also dead. They also have a day like this. I heard that the 3 captains of the Yechong Emperor's guards were all soul formation cultivators. All of them have also died. Everyone was discussing and some were even gloating. However, they were still extremely afraid of the heaven-destroying demonic ape. Not to mention ordinary sects, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was too powerful. Even sacred grounds and countries had to retreat. My 3 captains of guards have all died there. The Yechong Emperor couldn't help but sigh when he heard the news. After all, they were all experts trained with a lot of money. So what if they're dead? The Iron Hand Saint said coldly. They're too stupid. How could they rush into the demonic ape's nest? Your Majesty, we have to avoid this area. The demonic ape chased them all the way to the border of the no man's land before it stopped and stopped. When it stood at the border of the no man's land and glanced around, the cultivators on the periphery were all scared out of their wits and retreated again. Many people's legs gave out and they sat on the ground. The Iron Hand Saint frowned and pondered for a while. Suddenly he looked at the no man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. However, there seems to be something wrong with the old cultivators around Huanglinger. I have to keep an eye on them. Chapter 2043. However, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was more reluctant to leave its nest. After killing everyone, it did not chase after them. Instead, it turned around and returned to its nest. This no man's land regained its dead silence. Only the thick smell of blood floated in the air. Countless broken limbs were strewn on the ground, and there were also fragments of magic treasures left behind. Everyone marked this no man's land on the map and treated it as a forbidden zone. In the Luoying sect, Saint Qianma frowned and sighed. Ling entered that area. I don't know if she's dead or alive. The demonic aura was too strong and the laws were eroded. They could not sense the existence of the soul tablet. I'm afraid she's already dead. Lian Huahuan's face was calm and there was no sympathy. Because this disciple came from a lowly background and came from the distant Milky Way. The key was that she was ungrateful and repeatedly disobeyed her. She embarrassed herself in front of Yan Nanxian and died cleanly. Not necessarily. Saint Qianma said. I see that their soul tablets are not extinguished yet. They just became weaker. They may be hiding somewhere. I have to save them. Saint, it's too dangerous. Elder, is it worth taking the risk for a nascent soul disciple? Many disciples of the Luoying sect exclaimed and tried to persuade her. Especially Hua Xiangrong and the other disciples of Saint Qianma, they were even more reluctant. Huanglinger was Lian Huahuan's disciple, but she did not care and abandoned her like a worn-out shoe. What's the point of caring about this? Why is it not worth it? Saint Qianma smiled. Life is priceless. Every disciple in the sect, regardless of their cultivation level, is a treasure of the sect. Don't worry. I have experience in dealing with demonic creatures. Nothing will happen to me if I remain stealthy. Many disciples saw this and although they were worried they did not say anything. Lian Huahun disagreed. Elder, if you go, I'm afraid it's not safe for me to guard the flying ship alone. This is the base camp of many disciples. Should we consider the overall situation? There's no need to discuss this anymore. I've made up my mind. Saint Qianma frowned and said. I only need 1 day. Go and come back quickly. During this period, all disciples should not go out to look for the silver-rich grass and toads. Return to the flying ship. She glanced at the crowd and instructed earnestly, don't worry. Our focus is on participation, experience and protecting ourselves. Obtaining treasures is only the second most important thing. In order to find Huang Linger, all disciples must return. When Lian Huahan heard this, she was so angry that she almost vomited blood. However, Saint Qianma's words were reasonable and she could not refute them. Huang Linger is simply a jinx. You're delaying our search for the silver-rich grass and the toad. At this moment, Lian Huahan wished she could tear Huang Linger to shreds. Zhou knew for the rest of the day, you'll have to control the overall situation. I'm leaving. Saint Qianma left the flying boat and flew towards the uninhabited area in the east. She quickly disappeared between the rolling devil aura and the lofty mountains. After all the cultivators had died or left, the no-man's land fell into silence. Zhang Tian did not leave this place. Instead he stood on top of a mountain and observed. Looking at the undulating mountain range, Zhang Tian stroked his chin and sighed as his gaze swept past the few silver-rich grass that only had roots left. Good fellow, this fiery toad has eaten so much good stuff. Isn't it afraid of being stuffed to death? Should we chase after it? Chase? Beside him, Huang Linger asked softly. No. Zhang Tian pondered for a moment before he shook his head slowly. The fiery scarlet toad is simply too fast. Now that it's frightened, it's even faster. It'll be difficult for us to catch up. You can't imagine the speed it's running for its life. Then do you have a countermeasure? Huang Linger could not help but ask when she saw that Zhang Tian seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Zhang Tian smiled calmly and said, That's right. It's full and has been chased for so long. This toad is probably tired and wants to rest. Since it wants to sleep, let's set up a small nest for it. Thanks here. His smile was very bright, revealing his white teeth. As he spoke, he steered the flying boat and flew a few rounds above the no-man's land. Finally, he found a suitable place. This was a rather rare swampland. The mud was as black as oil, and there were countless green rusty skeletons floating in it. It bubbled like boiling water and black demonic chi filled the air, making one's hair stand on end. This is fucking disgusting. Standing on the shore, Sima Tu's face immediately turned ugly. He was a rough man, but when he saw this scene he could not help but feel ominous. Huang Linger also held her breath and looked nervous. Both the smell and the corrosion of the demonic chi made her extremely uncomfortable. Zhang Tian looked as if he was used to it. He glanced around and nodded in satisfaction. Senior brother Sima, please plow this swamp for me. The mud must be fresh like a steaming bun that just came out of the oven. I'll do it. Sima Tu was very reluctant. I'm an elite disciple of the Sacred Grounds Archaean sect. How can I do this kind of menial work? This is the work of servants, no mortals. Elite disciple? Ah, you're a bug to the heaven-carrying demonic ape. He's not full yet. Should I call him out? Zhang Tian chuckled and said, No, don't call him that. No, there's no need to make it so complicated. I just need to knock the earth filth fruit jam off your body. Don't. It's just a joke. Sima Tu was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He immediately took action and dived into the swamp. Then the mud in the swamp began to churn as if it was boiling. Zhang Tian took Huang Linger to prepare other things. In the past few years, Zhang Tian had quietly accumulated a large amount of spirit herbs and medicinal herbs. Many of them were even wood, stone, vine, and grass that Huang Linger couldn't even name. Zhang Tian burned a large number of spirit herbs and elixir herbs to ashes. Then he took Huang Linger to dig up mud ores that she could not name. Finally, under the guidance of Zhang Tian, the two of them were like children playing with mud. They carefully mixed the mud ores and the ashes into it. What are we going to do? Huang Linger felt as if she had returned to her childhood when she was stirring mud. She recalled her time on Earth and couldn't help but smile. We're going to make a nest for it. Zhang Tian smiled and said, For a toad that's full and tired from running, there's nothing better than a comfortable nest for it to have a good sleep. Of course, as long as it's asleep, I can't say for sure how long it'll take for it to wake up. Speaking of this, Zhang Tian showed a bright smile. There was no more gloominess and depression from before. Huang Linger saw his expression and knew that Zhang Tian was plotting against the flaming red toad. She was very confident in Zhang Tian. Whether it was the heaven-carrying demonic ape or the flaming red toad, Zhang Tian knew their habits like the back of his hand. It was as if he had personally raised them for many years. Chapter 2044. However, she did not ask about the theory behind it anymore. Soon Zhang Tian and Huang Linger made a mud nest. There was a faint smell of grass in the mud nest. This grassy aroma had a spicy smell that could be smelled from far away. The toad must love this nest. It's a standard mansion. Zhang Tian took a sip of fruit wine and smiled in satisfaction. At this time, Sima too had also plowed the swamp. Just as Zhang Tian had requested, it was steaming hot like a freshly baked bun. The demonic qi and miasma seemed to be thicker and could be smelled from far away. Zhang Tian waved his sleeves and the mud nest fell into the swamp. It slowly sank into the swamp and revealed the entrance of the cave. Everything is ready except for the east wind. Next we'll have to rely on luck. Zhang Tian pondered for a while and said seriously, let's leave here. At least 1,000 miles away we'll wait for the rabbit. He sighed helplessly. Brother Sima's concealment skills are too bad. No matter how we hide we'll be discovered. Sima too was embarrassed but could not refute. Seeing that Zhang Tian was serious, everyone immediately left and retreated to a hidden cave 1,000 miles away. That was not enough. Zhang Tian used the mysterious art of deceiving heaven and earth to form a barrier that enveloped Huang Linger and Sima Tuesday. The three of them held their breaths and stared at the mud nest, waiting for the arrival of the fiery scarlet toad. This toad was too important to Zhang Tian. Not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it also hid a huge secret. Time passed slowly, wearing down the three of their patience. Sima too was getting impatient and said in a low voice, "Fellow cultivator, we've waited for so long. Why hasn't the toad come out yet? Could it be that the mud nest had failed? Or was the toad caught by other cultivators? Maybe the mud nest failed." As soon as Zhang Tian finished speaking, Sima too was disappointed. "Let's go out. This is the nest of the heaven-carrying demonic ape. What if it comes out?" "Don't talk nonsense. If you keep talking nonsense I'll skin you alive and use you as bait to attract the toads." Zhang Tian's words frightened Sima too until his entire body quivered, but he didn't dare to speak anymore. After waiting bitterly for a long time, Zhang Tian's eyes suddenly flashed and he said in a low voice, "Quiet, they're coming." Huang Linger and Sima too, who were originally drowsy, suddenly became alert and stared at the mud pit without moving. True enough. Swoosh. A thin red light flashed and landed on the mud pit. The speed of this red light was too fast. If not for the fact that the three of them were observing with rapt attention and relaxed, they would not have noticed it at all. The light faded and the three of them immediately saw that it was a toad. At first glance this toad seemed no different from an ordinary toad. It was only the size of an adult's fist. However, his body was covered with red flame patterns, as if they were natural Dao patterns of raging fire. It had a natural charm of Dao. In addition, his stomach was especially bulging. It was unknown how much he had eaten. In fact, the flaming scarlet toad was indeed priceless. Its great Dao of raging fire could burn space, so its speed was extremely fast. It ate supreme treasure herbs and divine herbs daily. The spiritual qi laws and great Dao contained within were hard to calculate. One could imagine how precious it was. After the flaming scarlet toad landed on the swamp, its nostrils flared slightly, smelling the wind and grass around it, appearing very vigilant. It was very obvious that it had been frightened all the way and was very careful. The slightest sound would startle it and make it run far away. Therefore Zhang Tian was even more cautious. He did not move at all, not even daring to breathe. After a moment, confirming that there was no danger around, the flaming scarlet toad walked toward its cave entrance very carefully. Finally, the flaming scarlet toad stayed at the cave entrance motionlessly for 15 minutes. After confirming that it was safe again, it jumped into the mud pit and dug up some mud to block the cave entrance. At this time, from the outside, the mud pit had already disappeared. There was no trace of it at all. Just as Zhang Tian guessed, it had eaten too many good things and was tired from running. Could not wait to hibernate. However, even though the toad had entered its cave, Zhang Tian did not come out to take the mud pit immediately. Zhang Tian knew the habits of the flaming scarlet toad better than anyone. It was very vigilant and had not truly fallen asleep even now. He could only catch it after it had truly fallen asleep. Otherwise, once it was alarmed, it would be difficult to catch it again. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult. After waiting for a full 2 hours, Zhang Tian pinched his fingers and calculated that the toad should have truly fallen asleep. Only then did he suddenly take out the mud pit and seal it with laws before putting it into his robes. As immovable as a mountain, as swift as fire and as swift as the wind, Su Rulin. "Brother, you're brilliant." Hima too flattered. This flattery is not creative at all. Hee, it's not an exaggeration to say that if I didn't make a move, even void reversion saints might not be able to take it down. Zhang Tian said delightedly. He took out his flying boat and was about to leave. At this moment, a long rainbow streaked across the sky. Saint Qianma flew over and landed silently. He was pleasantly surprised. Ling, are you all right? Elder, I'm fine. Why are you here? Huang Linger's face immediately lit up with joy. She was not Saint Qianma's disciple and did not have much contact with her usually. But for some reason she felt very close to her, much closer than Lianhua. I heard that you guys entered the forbidden area of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, so I came to find you guys. Let's go. Saint Qianma said weakly. Zhang Tian scanned with his divine consciousness and found that she had been infected by demonic qi and had injuries on her body. She must have gone through a fierce battle. He could not help but feel touched. Without any nonsense, everyone boarded Saint Qianma's flying boat and flew towards the Luoying sect's large flying boat. Croak croak. At this moment the flaming scarlet toad in Zhang Tian's arms cried out. Saint Qianma's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at Zhang Tian in disbelief. This is, Senior, I've caught the flaming scarlet toad. Zhang Tian said calmly. He did not hide it. Saint Qianma was sincere and valued righteousness over benefits. Zhang Tian admired her character, so he addressed her as senior and treated her sincerely. This. Saint Qianma was shocked again. The flaming scarlet toad is extremely fast. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult to catch it. Could it be that you've hidden your cultivation level and are a peerless expert? The more she looked at Zhang Tian, the more she believed in her deduction. Although Zhang Tian looked depressed and dispirited, he was a mediocre middle-aged man who had been destroyed by life. But in essence, Zhang Tian had a carefree temperament. Even when facing him he was calm and collected. How could he be immortal? Zhang Tian chuckled. Senior, you've overestimated me. Indeed, I've hidden my cultivation level. However, it's not peerless or peerless. My cultivation level is merely at the peak of nascent soul realm. You're turning into immortal? Saint Qianma understood immediately. She could not help but think even more highly of Zhang Tian and lamented. I've lived for a few thousand years and have seen many cultivators who have turned into mortals. However, you're the first one who has walked so far on the path of turning into immortal, completely returning to being ordinary and becoming one with the mortal world. You're the only one. Congratulations, fellow Daoist. Since you've turned into immortal so successfully, it shouldn't be a problem for you to turn into a soul formation cultivator. Your future is limitless. Chapter 2045. Saint Qianma's words were not out of politeness or exaggeration. Turning into immortal was the process of building a foundation in the later stages of cultivation. It was similar to building a solid foundation when building a new building. Not only would it affect the soul formation realm, it would also affect the void reversion realm, Dao integration realm, and even the final tribulation to become an immortal. Thank you, Senior. Zhang Tian replied politely as well. Seeing how mystical Zhang Tian was, Saint Qianma could not help but fall into the old habits of some sect leaders. She smiled sweetly. Fellow Daoist, where are you from? Do you have any sect roots? I'm just an itinerant cultivator with no sect roots. Zhang Tian replied concisely. Zhang Tian did not mention his background. However, Saint Qianma was not a fool and did not ask further. She said sincerely, Fellow Daoist, as the saying goes, a single strand of silk cannot form a thread and a single tree cannot form a forest. Although itinerant cultivators are carefree, they do not have any disciples and subordinates. There are many chores that they have to do personally and it's a waste of time. Secondly, there are no friends who can compare notes with you. You can only understand the confusion of immortal cultivation by yourself. Therefore it's better to join a sect. Fellow Daoist, why don't you join our Luoying sect? I'll personally recommend you to the sect master and guarantee that you can become an elder. At the side, Sima Tu's eyes were red with jealousy and his cheeks were twitching. He had cultivated bitterly for 500 to 600 years in the Luoying sect and was only a personal disciple of an elder. To become an elder, one had to be the outer sect hall master and inner sect hall master. If everything went well, it would take at least another 500 to 600 years before he could become an elder. However, Zhang Tian had only been a servant in the Luoying sect for dozens of days and Saint Qianma was already recommending him to be an elder. Seeing that Zhang Tian did not reject immediately, Saint Qianma said even more fervently, "Fellow Daoist, don't worry. The so-called elder doesn't have to worry about much of the sect's affairs. It's more of a deterrent and you can completely focus on cultivation." Hearing that, Zhang Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Thank you for your kindness, fellow Daoist. I appreciate your kind intentions but that's not my ambition." At the side, Sima too was stunned. "Rejected? I guarantee that the treatment given by my sect will definitely surpass that of any other arcane sacred grounds." Saint Qianma did not give up and emphasized again. "No, when I said that my ambition doesn't lie here, I meant the entire Saint Origin world. Once this matter is over, I will leave Saint Origin world and travel to the universe," Zhang Tian said with a smile. Although Saint Qianma felt regretful, she couldn't say anything more. Zhang Tian's vision was not limited to this continent at all. At this moment, Zhang Tian gave her an incomparably mysterious and unfathomable feeling, making her sigh at her own inferiority. "However, as long as I'm still alive, I will come back. Senior needs it, I will help. If the Luoying sect is facing a calamity of extermination, I will save them once," Zhang Tian said indifferently. Although Lian Huahan was only using Huang Linger as a bargaining chip in exchange for a marriage alliance with the sect, Saint Qianma had helped Huang Linger many times and made decisions for her. Zhang Tian had always been clear about kindness and grudges. He would always repay kindness. He would remember this favor. "Thank you." At this moment, Saint Qianma didn't doubt the relationship between Zhang Tian and Huang Linger. However, she was naturally very grateful and happy to receive Zhang Tian's promise. The flying boat was very fast. After a few hours, they arrived at the large flying boat of the Luoying sect. Zhang Tian and the others had just stepped out of the flying boat. The Yechang Emperor flew out from the hall, emitting a torrential imperial aura as he shouted majestically, "Little brat, how dare you be disrespectful to me and insult me? Now kneel before me." Behind him, Lian Huahan accompanied him. The Iron Hand Saint was holding the line as they stared at Zhang Tian. Obviously, the Yechang Emperor came prepared and had been waiting for him for a long time. "You're courting death." Zhang Tian's eyes were cold. The Yechang Emperor, Zhang Tian didn't put him in his eyes at all. Although the Black Moon Empire and the Eastern Empire were neighbors, Zhang Tian didn't think that they would threaten the Eastern Empire. The Starfire Academy had the cultivation techniques he left behind, and the selection system would also stimulate the potential of the commoners. The overall national strength would become stronger and stronger. He believed that in 100 years, the Black Moon Empire would be lucky if it wasn't swallowed by the Eastern Empire. Therefore, Zhang Tian didn't plan to kill him. With another threat, it would make the Eastern Empire work harder. However, if he really wanted to court death, Zhang Tian wouldn't be polite. "Reckless thing, you're just an odd-job worker. Do you think the Luoying sect will protect you?" The Yechang Emperor mocked. Saint Qianma frowned when she heard this. She sent a message with her divine consciousness. "Lady Qianma, this child's origin is mysterious and his strength is amazing. We can't underestimate him. We have to protect him and leave him a favor. In the future he'll benefit from it." "Sage, are you muddle-headed? He's just a servant. What's so great about him?" Lian Huahan looked at Zhang Tian with disdain and sent a message with her divine consciousness. "It's not worth offending the Yechang Emperor for him. Lady Qianma, if you don't listen to me, you'll regret it." Saint Qianma wanted to persuade her again. However, Lian Huahan glanced at Zhang Tian coldly. "You damned handyman, have you forgotten the rules that I told you? Be careful with your words and actions. Don't offend cultivators. Now that you've caused a disaster, you have to bear the consequences." In fact, the reason why she insisted was not only because she didn't care about Zhang Tian's life, but also because she disliked Saint Qianma. Lian Huahan always felt that Saint Qianma liked to order people around. She thought that she was a saint and had enough experience. She even went to a remote star system like the Milky Way to train. Saint Qianma didn't have the right to make decisions for her. The Yechang Emperor shouted coldly. "Now come with me. I'm going to teach you a lesson," Zhang Tian said with disdain. "You want to take me away? You don't want to teach me a lesson. You want to take away the flaming red frog I caught. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Hearing this, Lian Huahun looked at Jiang Tian in shock. How could a mere mortal servant catch the fiery red clam? She looked at Saint Qianma again. Saint Qianma just smiled helplessly. She immediately understood that it was true. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was definitely an expert. He even caught the flaming red frog. At this moment she couldn't help but regret. If she didn't give the Yichang Emperor face just now, it would be very easy for her to come up with an excuse to take the frog. However, she had just said that she would let the Yichang Emperor take it away. If she denied it now, it would seem that she was going back on her words. After all, the Luoying sect was an orthodox sect. The cultivators also regarded them as the pillar of Saint Origin world. The Yichang Emperor's thoughts were exposed, but he was still not ashamed. So what? You dare to insult me? That's a capital offense. A toad in exchange for your lowly life, you should be grateful. Hand it over. The demonic qi in the no man's land was very dense. He didn't directly see how Jiang Tian caught the flaming red frog. However, the Iron Hand Saint was also an old bird. He had explored this place several times and found that the flaming red frog had entered the no man's land. Then his divine sense sensed that Jiang Tian had returned from the no man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. Moreover, there was a slight fluctuation of the flaming red frog's law on his body. Therefore he immediately deduced that Jiang Tian might have caught the frog. Originally, the Yichang Emperor had wanted to forget about this matter because he had lost a lot of soldiers to capture Jiang Tian. After all, his ultimate goal was to explore and seize the treasure. However, when they heard the news, they immediately came to the flying ship of the Luoying sect to force Lian Huahun to take Jiang Tian away and punish him. Lian Huahun didn't know the inside story, so she naturally wouldn't stop them. What if I don't obey? Jiang Tian said calmly. Then I'll kill you. The Yichang Emperor shouted. Suddenly, an endless murderous aura shot up to the sky. It was as if it could kill all living things and destroy the world. Chapter 2046. Although Jiang Tian had escaped from the territory of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, and although Jiang Tian had captured the flaming red toad, the Yichang Emperor did not think that Jiang Tian was more powerful than him. Later, a few cultivators who had escaped from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's hands also explained. Jiang Tian had not made a move from the beginning to the end. Everyone had died in the hands of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but the demonic ape had not attacked Jiang Tian at all. After hearing the news, the Yichang Emperor and the Iron Hand Saint had a long discussion. In the end, they agreed that Jiang Tian knew the habits of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but he might not be very powerful. Otherwise, he would not have lured everyone into the territory of the demonic ape. He could have killed them directly. It was because they thought that Jiang Tian was not very powerful and treated him as a fat sheep. Otherwise, they would not have dared to come and snatch him. You. Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously and said, "Get out of here before I get angry. Otherwise I will kill you. Not to mention you, even your master is just an ant in my eyes." As soon as he said that, the whole place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief as if they were looking at a lunatic. Even the Iron Hand Saint raised his eyebrows and looked at Jiang Tian. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, as if he was looking at an ant. "You don't know what's good for you. How dare you talk so arrogantly? Don't you know who you are talking to? You are too arrogant. Do you think you are so great just because you caught the toad and scared the demonic ape with some tricks? Yes, in the end, the competition between cultivators is still a competition of strength. Talking is not enough." Many cultivators laughed at him. "Torture him well. Don't kill him immediately." Hearing that, the Yichang Emperor was furious, but he soon calmed down and said with a cruel smile, "I want him to know the consequences of being an enemy of the Black Moon Empire." At this time, the Divine Transformation Realm Guards of the Yichang Emperor sneered coldly. One of the Divine Transformation Realm Guards stepped forward with a cruel look in his eyes. "You have indeed concealed your cultivation, but upon closer inspection, your cultivation is merely at the nascent soul stage. If we attack a nascent soul cultivator together, we'll be bullying you. This lord can take care of you by myself. What do you want to do now? Perhaps this lord can even lessen the pain before your death." Although he said that, he did not show any mercy. His Dao artifact shone brightly as it flew towards Jiang Tian. "From!" Jiang Tian shouted. His figure flashed and his whole person soared into the sky, crashing towards the other party. The Divine Transformation Realm Guard Captain had a mocking expression on his face. Using his physical body to collide with his Dao artifact was tantamount to courting death. However, with a clang the Dao artifact shattered. Blood rained down from the sky and broken bones sparkled. In the blink of an eye the guard captain was struck by Zhang Tian, and he was like a weak infant that was smashed by a heavy hammer. He was instantly smashed into meat paste, and his shattered body shot out in all directions. "Protect the Emperor." The other guards were startled. They shouted, and several Dao artifacts and dozens of true artifacts attacked Zhang Tian together. This guy is so strange. Even the Iron Hand Saint, whose eyes were as calm and indifferent as an ancient well, had a slight change in his expression as he let out a soft cry of surprise. He had never thought that Zhang Tian would be able to crush a Divine Transformation Realm Cultivator when he was only at the nascent soul stage. "You're courting death." Zhang Tian let out a loud roar. His cultivation base rose steadily and his aura soared to the sky. At first, Zhang Tian had planned to hide his cultivation and not use his trump card until the last moment, in case the giant in the 9 heavens sensed it. That was why he had used the heaven-carrying demon ape to ambush Xianxia and the others. But at this moment, Emperor Yichang was forcing him and Zhang Tian was not a pushover. How could he tolerate it? If he killed them then so be it. He could just forge another identity after he got out. In his fury Zhang Tian did not use any techniques. Instead he used his physical strength to charge forward. However, the chaotic godly body was far too terrifying. It was like the most vicious weapon. It was extremely heavy and unstoppable. "Ah! Help! Get out of the way!" Screams and screams were heard one after another. One by one the guards exploded like a string of firecrackers. Their armors, shields and Dharma artifacts were all shattered. They could not withstand a single blow. In the blink of an eye, dozens of guards died, including 7 or 8 Divine Transformation Realm guards. Such a change stunned everyone who saw it. There were no moves, no Dharma spells, no power of the Grand Tao, no Dharma laws. It was purely his body, but it was invincible. He forcefully crushed all the enemies in his way, especially Lian Huahan and the others from the Luoying sect. They were shocked and felt a little scared. Along the way, Zhang Tian had been showing up as a mortal servant. In their eyes, he was just an ordinary person who knew a little about alchemy and could repair Dharma artifacts. Thus, many disciples also did not mince words towards Zhang Tian, ordering him around here and there. But now, if this person wanted to take revenge, not many people could withstand his thunderous attack. Damn it! The Yichang Emperor stared at Zhang Tian with a hint of fear in his eyes. It was as if he had seen a demon and a chill ran down his spine. Form the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation. The Iron Hand Saint was also shocked by Zhang Tian, but he quickly regained his composure and shouted. The Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation could combine everyone's cultivation as one. The power of the formation was comparable to that of a sage. The Iron Hand Saint did not believe it at all. Zhang Tian was just a nascent soul realm cultivator. Even if he drank the blood of a perfected immortal, he could not have the strength of a void-returned sage. Form the formation. Many guards immediately reacted. As they retreated and distanced themselves from Zhang Tian, they changed positions and formed a battle formation. They were well-trained and orderly, and their arrangement seemed to be in accordance with some kind of heavenly Tao. Zhang Tian stopped for the first time and looked at the battle formation with interest. Haha, the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation is powerful and intimidating. Although this person is arrogant, he doesn't dare to do something like throwing an egg at a rock. He's afraid in the end. Seeing Zhang Tian stop, the Yichang Emperor thought that Zhang Tian was afraid. He could not help but feel smug and sneered. If I didn't stop, would this bullshit Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation have a chance to be formed? As soon as Zhang Tian said that. Arrogant. The Yichang Emperor was like a cat whose tail was stepped on when his ancestral formation was mocked. He flew into a rage. Could it be that this lad is so daring that he has the strength of a saint? However, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned and his heart suddenly turned cold. Because he understood that Zhang Tian's words were not empty bravado, and every single one of them was reasonable. His movement technique was indeed faster than those soul formation and nascent soul realm cultivators. If he didn't do it on purpose, the battle formation would not have been formed. However, before he could react, Jiang Tian had already swayed and slashed at the Emperor Ming demon vanquishing formation like a peerless heavenly blade. At this time the Emperor Ming demon vanquishing formation was truly activated. Thousands of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators were wearing shining armors. Powerful Dharma power waves gathered like streams into an ocean, forming the image of a benevolent Emperor Ming above the battle array. Chapter 2047. The shadow of Emperor Ming was over 1,000 feet tall. He wore a crown and an emperor's robe. He was majestic and skilled in both civil and martial arts. He held a long saber in his hand and raised it high. Then he slashed it at Jiang Tian. This slash contained the power of exorcism and exorcism. It was powerful enough to kill a saint. In less than a second the two sides collided violently. At the moment of collision, everyone had the illusion that time and space had come to a standstill. After a few seconds time resumed its flow. A loud bang was heard. First, the demon exorcism saber in Emperor Ming's hand cracked and fell apart. It floated in the air like a stream of light. Then the force spread. His arms, body and head also fell apart like pieces of paper. The surging waves of dermic power directly destroyed the battle formation below. He broke the formation with one strike. He's so powerful. How terrifying. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. Their hearts were in a state of chaos and disbelief. He has become so powerful. Huang Linger couldn't help but feel shocked and overjoyed. She knew that Jiang Tian was Imperial Advisor Xiqing. When he was in the Eastern Empire his hands were stained with blood. He had the power to kill gods and saints. However, hearing about it was one thing. Seeing it with her own eyes was another thing. After all, she had not seen Jiang Tian fight since she parted ways with Jiang Tian on Earth. Now that she saw it for the first time, the psychological impact was unimaginable. Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Her face was filled with disbelief. A saint. She could not help but regret it. She did not see that this person was a powerhouse at the level of a giant. Therefore she was persuaded by Emperor Yichang with a few words. She did not care whether he lived or died and let Yichang do whatever she wanted. If she had seen through Jiang Tian's capabilities, or if she had stuck to her principles, or if she had been less arrogant and not so headstrong, she would have listened to Saint Qianma's earnest advice and would not have offended Jiang Tian. If she could keep Jiang Tian in the Luoying sect, she would have another powerful pillar of support. After all, there were only a few dozen saints in the entire Saint Origin world. They were extremely rare and important. This is the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Even Saint Qianma was shocked. Her face was full of shock and her delicate body trembled. Although she knew that Jiang Tian was strong, she did not expect him to be this strong. She was afraid that the Emperor Ming's demon buster formation would be broken. As expected, after Jiang Tian destroyed Emperor Ming's shadow, his momentum did not diminish at all. Like a peerless heavenly blade cutting open the earth, he split the entire battle formation apart in an instant. Countless cultivators were sent flying like paper shredded in the wind. Some of them even turned into a bloody mist on the spot. Flesh and blood rained down and fragments of armors and artifacts shot out. Smash it! Seeing Jiang Tian charging at him with unstoppable momentum, he roared and took out a Saint Artifact-grade shield. This shield came from the inheritance of the first emperor and could withstand several full-powered attacks from Return to Void stage saints. He had refined it with his blood essence for several decades and it was his natal Dharma artifact. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to control it. The shield could be used for both offense and defense. It immediately shrank to the size of a millstone, then whistled through the air toward Jiang Tian. Bam! Under Jiang Tian's attack, the shield immediately flew diagonally and lost control. Several cracks appeared on it. Jiang Tian's momentum did not diminish as he continued to charge toward the Yichang Emperor. The Yichang Emperor flipped his right hand and took out a Saint Artifact-grade mirror. However, at this moment he was already frightened by Jiang Tian. Therefore he let out a frantic cry for help. "Master, save me!" His voice carried a clear sobbing tone. The emperor of a large country, how ruthless and tenacious, how cold-hearted, but under Jiang Tian's tyrannical suppression, he was actually like a bullied child on the verge of tears. "Fellow Daoist, please stop." In fact, he did not need to say anything. The Iron Hand Saint had already made his move. He stretched out his right hand which covered the sky and the sun. Like a falling mountain, he grabbed at Jiang Tian's head. This giant palm was really terrifying. It was completely condensed from the laws of the Great Tao. It was extremely heavy and majestic. Even an early-stage void return expert would find it difficult to deal with it. However, Jiang Tian did not want to take it head-on. This was the first time he used it. The Kun Ping divine law filled his entire body. His body was strong and flexible like a dragon. It was as if he could split the heaven and earth, split yin and yang, and broke through space. In a flash, he appeared beside the Yechang Emperor. You dare to kill me? I am the emperor of a country. If you kill me, you will become the enemy of the entire country. The Yechang Emperor roared fiercely. Idiot! Jiang Tian reached out with his right hand and grabbed onto his head like a steel hook. Then his head and spine were pulled out of his body in an instant. Blood splattered. The Yechang Emperor's eyes were wide open. He did not even have the chance to scream. A mere Black Moon Empire is not qualified to threaten me. Jiang Tian casually threw his head aside and said slowly. At this moment, the entire scene was silent. Everyone held their breath and did not even dare to breathe loudly. All the surrounding cultivators were deeply shocked by this scene. They could not help but feel a chill down their spines and their hair stood on end. At this moment, when Jiang Tian's gaze swept across, all the cultivators present shuddered in unison. No one would have thought that this seemingly depressed and ordinary middle-aged man in front of them would be so decisive and ruthless in killing. At this moment, everyone's impression of him had changed. To be honest, when Jiang Tian rebelled against the Yechang Emperor, many cultivators thought that he was reckless and arrogant. However, at this moment, everyone realized that he was not arrogant. He originally had the strength to do so. Moreover, he was a peerless, fierce person. It was just that he kept a low profile and did not like to cause trouble. At this moment, many people's scalps went numb. He even killed an emperor. How domineering and ferocious was this? For a moment, many people were so scared that they retreated more than 100 miles. They were afraid that Jiang Tian would go crazy and bring disaster to them. Among the crowd, only the people from the Eastern Empire were ecstatic. The Yechang Emperor is dead. God has opened his eyes. A sweet smile appeared on Princess Mou's pretty face. Her heart relaxed as if a big stone had been removed from her. The Yechang Emperor was very evil, but he wanted to pursue her. Mou could not determine what this kid was going to do next. She felt as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. She was both afraid and disgusted. Princess Royal, Yechang is dead. I can guarantee that at least for 100 years, the Black Moon Empire will not have the strength to attack our country. Fang Goyu was also overjoyed and smiled like a flower. Yes. Mou nodded with a smile. However, Lin Yang touched his chin and looked at Jiang Tian's figure, revealing a thoughtful expression. Don't you think that this person is somewhat similar to an old friend of ours? Could it be him? After Lin Yang's reminder, Fang Goyu's mind seemed to light up like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the fog. It's really him. The more Mou looked, the more similar it seemed. She had been bitterly searching for Jiang Tian for several years, but there was no trace of him. She had been in despair. At this moment, seeing Jiang Tian for the first time, her heart could not help but feel sweet and sour. Unknowingly, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Chapter 2048. However, they were all very smart. They knew that if Jiang Tian was hiding his identity, he must have his reasons. Therefore no one exposed him. I will kill you. Seeing this, the Iron Hand Saint couldn't help but be enraged. He took out a sacred weapon and attacked wildly, wanting to kill Jiang Tian. The Iron Hand Saint was flustered and exasperated at this moment. His beloved disciple had been killed in front of him. What a great humiliation. Moreover, his relationship with Yechang had been very deep over the years. They were like father and son. His beloved disciple's death was even more painful to him. He was determined to avenge his beloved disciple. The veteran saint attacked in anger. He was already at the mid-stage void return realm. How terrifying was that? He was much stronger than the sect master of the Aoshi sect, Zhou Xian, and the others. He could be considered a big shot on this continent. Boom. Even though Jiang Tian had used the speed of the Kun Ping, he couldn't dodge in time and was sent flying by the sacred weapon. He crashed through mountain after mountain. After flying for dozens of kilometers, he crashed into something and created a mushroom cloud before coming to a stop. At that instant, many cultivators wore pained looks on their faces and inhaled deeply. This was a veteran saint attacking with his full strength with a sacred weapon. Even a body made of great Dao treasure metal would be shattered. This kid can be considered a genius, but he's too arrogant and doesn't know when to stop. Lian Huahan shook her head regretfully and disdainfully. At this moment the expressions of eldest Princess Mou Fang Goyu and the others changed drastically. Huang Linger turned pale with fright and almost screamed out loud. Almost everyone was sure that Jiang Tian would die without a doubt. His chances of survival were slim. Old coffin board, this is a grudge between us. I will kill you. Boom. Rocks flew into the air. In the distance, Jiang Tian soared into the sky and shouted with a murderous aura. Upon closer inspection, there were only some superficial wounds on his body. There were no injuries at all. Most importantly, his spirit embryo and nascent soul were unharmed and could circulate freely. He's actually not dead. Could it be a legendary sacred nascent soul? No, I'm afraid it's an immortal nascent soul. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. How is this possible? Even Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. A nascent soul cultivator was actually able to survive the attack of a veteran sage. This was too inconceivable. Not only did it have to be at the great circle of the nascent soul realm, it also had to be of an extremely high grade. But he didn't know. Even if it was just a superficial wound, Jiang Tian was already furious. Ever since he reached the peak of the nascent soul stage, this was the first time he suffered such a huge loss. Even if he were to be defeated by a veteran sage of the return to void intermediate stage, he still couldn't accept it. Reckless fool. His bones are pretty tough, he actually didn't die. The Iron Hand Saint shouted as he withdrew his saint weapon, wanting to attack again. Saint Qianma's body swayed and shielded Jiang Tian behind her. She shouted, Iron Hand Saint, stop. This mister is my sex odd job worker, and he is not someone you can kill as you please. You casually kill people. Could it be that you don't put my Luo insect in your eyes? Plang. As she spoke, she also took out a saint weapon and prepared to fight to the death. The Iron Hand Saint was exasperated. Qianma, you're willing to become enemies with me just to protect a nameless scoundrel. So what if I fight? Saint Qianma didn't give an inch. The Yachang Emperor was obviously here for the fiery red toad and was bullying the weak. As for Jiang Tian's crime of insulting him, that was just an excuse. Now he couldn't defeat Jiang Tian and even use the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation, but he was still killed by Jiang Tian. He only had himself to blame. The Iron Hand Saint still wanted to attack. He only cared about strength and not morality. Since the other party was so shameless, Saint Qianma naturally chose to fall out with the other party without hesitation. Just as the Iron Hand Saint hesitated, Princess Mou also stepped forward and said, I can testify that this mister only said that the Yachang Emperor and I are not compatible. He didn't disrespect him and was just trying to persuade him. Emperor Yachang came here to pick a fight. It's obvious that he's here to seize the treasure. Not only did she move, but the entire army of the Eastern Empire also moved. They formed a battle formation and their murderous intent soared to the sky. Fang Jinlong, Lin Hanqing and the other Soul Formation Grand Cultivators were all ready to attack. Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor killed you for the treasure. He was just trying to frame you. Now that he's dead, who can he blame? Fang Jinlong sneered. Apparently he was on Jiang Tian's side and wanted to fight to the death with the Iron Hand Saint. Well, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned. He didn't expect that not only Saint Qianma, but also the overlords of the Eastern Empire were on Jiang Tian's side. He was now alone and he only had a 50% chance of winning if he fought against Saint Qianma. With the Eastern Empire, his chances of winning were slim. Senior Iron Hand, the dead can't come back to life. I'm sorry for your loss. While he was stunned, Lin Yang persuaded him softly to further weaken his fighting spirit and killing intent. Lin Hanqing secretly said with his immortal will, Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor is dead. The Black Moon Empire will be in chaos and the people won't be able to make a living. How would they have the time to provide you with cultivation resources? Why don't you join our Starfire Academy? The reward will be increased by 1 generation. Hearing this, the Iron Hand Saint's eyes lit up and his killing intent slowly receded. The Iron Hand Saint was similar to the Grand Tutor. At the end of the day, he was still bound by benefits and didn't have deep emotional ties. In other words, even if he had emotional ties, they were secondary to benefits. So what if he killed Jiang Tian to avenge the Yacheng Emperor? What benefits could he get? The biggest difference between cultivators and mortals was that they were extremely rational. They were rarely emotional and used the pros and cons as the yardstick. Besides, it was easy to kill Jiang Tian. All he had to do was leave a divine sense mark and follow him to kill him. There was no need to provoke everyone at this time and put himself in a passive position. Forget it. I was too impulsive. Since everyone is pleading for you, I'll give everyone face and spare your life. Besides, no matter how good your foundation is and how high the grade of your nascent soul is, you're still just a nascent soul. I'm crossing 2 levels to suppress you. Isn't that bullying? The Iron Hand Saint shook his head and sighed, pretending to be magnanimous. He had a look of, I won't lower myself to your level. Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. He looked at the Iron Hand Saint's performance coldly and didn't say a word. To be honest, even if he was at the peak of the nascent soul realm, he could fight against a saint at level 1 or level 2 of the Void Return realm. However, it was extremely difficult to fight against a level 3 of the Void Return realm. After all, there was the suppression of levels. At this time he had no chance of winning against the Iron Hand Saint. If they really fought, he might be obliterated. However, he had to avenge this attack. Your foundation is good. I didn't kill you because of my love for talent. I hope you can uphold justice in the future and become the pillar of this continent. The Iron Hand Saint was extremely hypocritical. He put on the demeanor of an honest elder and earnestly taught him. Thank you for not killing me, senior. I'll remember your teachings. It was my fault for killing the Yacheng Emperor just now. Jiang Tian retracted his killing intent and bowed apologetically, looking repentant. Who didn't know how to act? Boom. Right at this moment, in the deepest part of the canyon, the place known as the Demon Tide area, an earth-shattering sound rang out. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. It was as if an inexplicable existence had awakened. It was an extremely terrifying and ominous aura. Everyone looked over at the same time and saw a shocking scene. Chapter 2049. A colorful pillar of light shot into the sky from the demonic tide area, illuminating the entire canyon. Around the pillar of light, a rain of light floated, covering hundreds of thousands of feet in the sky. It was extremely beautiful. After more than 10 flicks of a finger, the pillar of light and the strange rain of light disappeared. Immortal light like a pillar, auspicious air across the sky. Is this the legendary supreme immortal item about to be born? Is it the tree from the immortal world that suppresses the demonic creatures? Many cultivators couldn't help but be shocked. Before this, there were related rumors. There was an immortal tree suppressing the demonic creatures here. Once it was born, there would be dense immortal light, light rain, and auspicious colors, illuminating the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Now the pillar of light shot into the sky, confirming the rumors. In an instant, the news of the immortal tree's birth spread throughout the entire critical canyon like a hurricane. All the adventuring forces were excited when they heard the news. The immortal tree. An item from the immortal world of the 9 heavens. It contained boundless power and represented boundless blessings. It was rumored that a withered branch could kill a Dao integration perfected immortal, and a leaf could directly push a mortal to the Void Return Saint realm. Although these rumors might be exaggerated, it was enough to see the miraculous and precious nature of the immortal tree. I'm going in. At this moment, the Iron Hand Saint could not be bothered with Jiang Tian anymore. He turned around and flew into the depths. Go, go, go. Quick, quick, quick. We have to take the initiative. In fact, the Iron Hand Saint was almost alone. Yacheng had died and many soul formation cultivators had been killed. There were only a few nascent soul cultivators left. However, at this moment he also rushed in without a care for his own safety. The reason was very simple. The benefits were too great. Is there really a treasure from the immortal world, a relic of a true god? Seeing the Iron Hand Saint leading the Black Moon Empire forward, the other great sects, powerful nations and famous families were all shaken. Let's go, we have to take a look no matter what. Yes, how can we enter a treasure mountain and return empty-handed? Wealth moved people's hearts and cultivation resources were too tempting. For a moment, countless sects and powerful countries could not wait any longer and prepared to explore the depths of the canyon. But there's a supreme demonic creature there. That's right. It was said that the immortal tree was originally set up by a mighty person in the Middle Ages to suppress the supreme devil. That monster is surrounded by countless great devils. That is the place with the densest immortal qi and also the place with the densest devil qi. It's extremely dangerous. Anyone below the level of a saint would be digging their own graves if they enter. Some sect leaders were also very hesitant. Recalling all kinds of terrifying records and legends, he felt a chill run down his spine. I heard that even if you're near the immortal tree, as long as you keep your distance from the demons and don't alarm them, you'll be able to reap great rewards. Yes. As long as we follow behind the powerful forces, we'll follow them wherever they go. As long as we keep a low profile and don't alarm the demons, we'll be safe. Many cultivators harbored fantasies and wishful thinking. He clearly knew that this kind of treasure snatching was akin to licking the blood off the blade and snatching food from the tiger's mouth. However, when they saw Tai Shou enter, they were still tempted and started to act. Just like the old saying, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. However, the Luoying sect in the Eastern Empire were still biding their time. Sir, what do you think? To everyone's surprise, Saint Qianma actually looked at Zhang Tian and asked. The balance has really been broken. Zhang Tian's expression was slightly solemn as he sighed. Saint Qianma thought of a possibility and exclaimed, Fellow Daoist, are you saying that the phenomenon in the demon tide area is the final radiance of the immortal tree and those demons are about to be born? Zhang Tian smiled but did not say anything. Fellow Daoist, is there really the legendary immortal tree, the treasures left behind by the immortal world and the god world? Eldest Princess Mou was also very curious. There were many related legends, but they were uncertain and confusing. That area was filled with mysteriousness, mystery, allure, and terror. In an instant, countless gazes fell on Zhang Tian, seeking his opinion. Clearly, he was treating Zhang Tian as one of those old monsters who knew everything in the world. This also made Zhang Tian helpless. Although he tried his best to keep a low profile and did not want to reveal any of his strength, there were some old friends that he had to protect. Everyone could still see that he was extraordinary from various details. However, it was obvious that eldest Princess Mou did not lack wisdom, and Lin Yang Fanggoyu and the others had also grown extremely quickly. They vaguely sensed that Zhang Tian was actually unwilling to keep his identity, so even now they did not rashly acknowledge him. The treasures of the gods? If there really is, will Iron Hand and the others get a chance? Zhang Tian smiled disdainfully. Mou frowned and looked at Zhang Tian, asking in confusion, Senior, what exactly is that? A fiend god. Zhang Tian narrowed his eyes calmly, but his slightly cold voice made people shudder. A supreme fiend god that has been hungry for 100,000 years and wants to devour the world and destroy all living beings. When everyone heard this, they all shuddered. He's pretending to be mysterious. This old monster is dishonest. Although Lian Huahan knew that Zhang Tian had an extraordinary background, she did not believe Zhang Tian's words and could not help but sneer in her heart. That was because the treasures of sky immortals and sky gods in the depths of the critical canyon were not legends. After all, there were really predecessors who obtained immortal materials and divine materials from the depths and instantly became sages, obtaining the resources and foundation to become immortals and going far away to the star sea to find a greater opportunity. At this moment, all kinds of phenomena were exactly the same as in the legends and records. It was the sign of the birth of an immortal item. As for why Zhang Tian did this, it was very simple. Scaring away one was one, and there would be less interference and competition in the subsequent treasure hunt. And Saint Qianma confirmed one of her guesses through Zhang Tian's words. The immortal tree that suppressed the demonic creatures was about to wither and disintegrate. The supreme demonic creatures were about to rise and even open a passage. She could not help but look at Zhang Tian and say, the demonic creatures are about to rise. Fellow Daoist, you know the demonic nature of the demonic creatures and should have a way to suppress them. At this moment, it's time for you to act righteously and save the world. Let's go to the demon tide area to suppress the demonic creatures together. Zhang Tian felt a headache coming on. It was that, with great power comes great responsibility again. However, he could not blame Saint Qianma. She was a void reversion saint and was equivalent to the pillar of this mainland. She had deep feelings for this mainland. Those words were not false and came out of sincerity. Zhang Tian believed that once the demon tide broke out, she would definitely give her all and even sacrifice her life. Don't worry, I'll make a move when it's time. It's just that I have other things to do now. Zhang Tian said awkwardly but politely. Then let's part ways here. I'll lead the sect to the depths of the demon tide. Frowning, Saint Qianma suddenly took out her communication jade token and circulated her cultivation with all her might. Send a message. This was the communication jade token used by the Saint Alliance. In the Saint Origin mainland, many void reversion experts of the sacred grounds and god sects formed a Saint Alliance. They took it as their duty to suppress evil, wipe out the demonic creatures and protect the human race of the mainland. Once the message was sent, everyone received it at the same time. An extremely thin dermic power fluctuation shot up into the sky from the jade token. It was tens of thousands of feet long and was still extending. In the process of extending, there was no dermic power being emitted. Like a dazzling thin line, it rushed out of the liminal Grand Canyon. When it rushed out of the liminal Grand Canyon, the dermic power fluctuation exploded like a firework. The dermic power fluctuation that contained the message was like an invisible wave that rolled out in all directions. These dermic power fluctuations would be received by the same communication jade token and turned into a message. The demon tide is coming in the liminal Grand Canyon. Saint, that's just his side of the story. There's no need to be so nervous. Lian Huahun frowned and said, if it's fake news, won't it disturb the Void Reversion Saint's cultivation? Chapter 2050. This is a serious matter. Once the demonic wave erupts, billions of lives will perish. Saint Qianma frowned with worry. Thus, even if there is only a sliver of hope, we must defend with all our might. Now let's go to the deepest part of the canyon, the place where the auspicious light is. Determination appeared on her face. Good. Let's go at full speed. Lian Huahun didn't have any objections and was even impatient. However, her thoughts were different from Saint Qianma's. She simply thought that Jiang Tian was just scaring them. If they were late, they might even end up empty-handed. Let's go as well. At this moment, Grand Princess Mou had always been decisive and immediately said resolutely, once the demonic wave erupts, our Eastern Empire will be the first to be affected. The Empire will be in danger. Princess, we need to gather more cultivators and troops. But we can't rashly enter the canyon. It's too easy to die here. The residents within 200,000 miles of the evil-infested ridge must immediately move and set up a steel defense line to stop the demonic wave and annihilate it in this area. Lin Hanqing, Lin Yang, and Fang Jinlong were filled with battle intent and murderous intent. They emitted a fearless aura as they quickly discussed. Jiang Tian watched from the side and sighed at Lin Yang's rapid growth. He felt comforted in his heart. Especially when they faced danger and disaster, they still bravely faced it. They didn't abandon the civilians and used their actions to carry out Jiang Tian's concept of, a single spark can start a prairie fire. Cultivators were born between mortals. The strong should fight for the weak. This was because the hundreds of millions of weaklings were the vast ocean that supported the strong on their voyages. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. Give the weak a single spark and it could start a prairie fire. Suddenly Jiang Tian calmly said, don't worry. If you go now, you'll just die and become a delicacy in the mouth of the demon god. A golden core servant accidentally obtained a piece of Tao accumulating tea tree. His cultivation soared and reached spirit severing. Iron Hand Saint obtained a green bronze cauldron made from supreme treasure metal. It's priceless. Crown Prince Qingdun of the Fire Fox Empire obtained an immortal bone dagger that can slay mighty figures and saints. The sect leader of the Thunder Yang sect, Yang Yongchang, obtained the Taihao Divine Stone. It contains the essence of fire and its price is comparable to that of a country. At this moment, some of the vanguard teams had already received news of supreme immortal materials and divine materials. The value of these immortal materials was immeasurable. Outside the canyon, one would only appear once in thousands or tens of thousands of years. It could rapidly increase one's cultivation base. In particular, it could increase the cultivation base of return to void stage cultivators. Even though he couldn't directly advance to the Dao integration stage, he would at least be able to advance by 1 or 2 minor levels. And how difficult was it to break through to the return to void stage? Many times, even after thousands of years of hard work, they still couldn't make a single step forward. When Lian Huahun heard Jiang Tian's grumbling and saw that Sage Qianma had really stopped the procession, she couldn't help but feel even more disgusted with Jiang Tian. This person was truly despicable and shameless to the extreme. With so many treasures, did he really want to monopolize them all? Sir, we have no other choice. Saint Qianma smiled bitterly. I'm not asking you to retreat. Jiang Tian leisurely said, that's right. We still have to resist the demon tide, but sharpening the knife won't delay the work of cutting firewood. Follow me and make some preparations. At least we can protect ourselves when the demon tide strikes. Fellow Daoist Qianma, don't be anxious. In my opinion, the demon tide won't erupt so soon. With that, he steered the flying boat and flew back the way he came. He didn't want to reveal the news about the Six Paths lotus tree. But after all, Saint Qianma had risked her life to save him. Lin Yang and the others were also fated with him for 2 lifetimes. How could Jiang Tian sit by and watch them die? Let's go. Eldest Princess Mou Lin Hanqing and the other leaders looked at each other and immediately followed Jiang Tian. Saint Qianma didn't hesitate and looked at Lian Huahan. That girl, let's go too. Senior Qianma, this person is just a stranger to us. His words might not be trustworthy. Lian Huahan firmly objected. This person hides his head and shows his tail. He doesn't dare to show his true face. His behavior is suspicious. He doesn't seem to be a good person and has ulterior motives. I think we still need to be vigilant and stay away from him. Sect girl, you worry too much. Saint Qianma shook her head gently and said with deep emotion, this person's future is limitless. His vision has surpassed the entire continent. He doesn't want to have a deep relationship with us, so he doesn't reveal his true identity. Although Lian Huahan disdained in her heart, she couldn't object. Besides, Iron Hand Saint Yang Yongchang and the others have already gone deep into the Blessed Land and taken the initiative. I'm worried that our sect will get nothing. Saint Qianma pondered for a while and nodded. Then we'll split into 2 groups. You take your disciples deep into the Blessed Land and I'll take Hua Xiangrong and the others to follow this fellow Daoist. Speaking of this, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. It was strange that until now she still hadn't figured out the origin and name of Jiang Tian. But after a short contact she had an inexplicable trust in Jiang Tian. Lian Huahan glanced angrily at Huang Linger, who was on Jiang Tian's flying boat. He was very annoyed. This girl is getting more and more outrageous. She has no respect for her elders. She even left without reporting to me. I'll find a chance to kill her. Let's go. However, Lian Huahan was eager to get the treasure and didn't want to waste time on this matter. She led the disciples and left quickly. Seeing that Lian Huahan led the team deep into the Blessed Land, Jiang Tian was expressionless. He looked on coldly and didn't say anything. Kong Teichu was not a good person. In fact, Lian Huahan was extremely hypocritical. On the surface she was benevolent and virtuous, but in fact she was extremely cold and cruel. She just regarded Huang Linger as a bargaining chip in the exchange of interests. Jiang Tian was already merciful not to kill her. Now she was stubbornly pursuing her own way and seeking death. How could Jiang Tian stop her? Soon Jiang Tian led the group back tens of thousands of miles. Everyone looked at each other suspiciously. Why did fellow Daoist Jiang bring us back here? This place was already a safe zone. There were no demonic creatures around. However, there were also very few natural treasures. However, they knew that Jiang Tian had his reasons for doing so they didn't ask. In the end, Jiang Tian landed on a gentle slope. This place was very ordinary. There was nothing unusual about it. There was very little demonic qi. The soil was yellowish instead of the dark demonic earth. It was similar to the outside world. Everyone's expressions were even more strange. They didn't know what Jiang Tian was trying to do. I've waited bitterly on this continent for more than 10 years for your rebirth. At this time, Jiang Tian walked slowly to an ordinary-looking cassia lotus tree with his hands behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the crown of the tree. His eyes were deep as he sighed with emotion. With your help, you can help me reach the top of the divine transformation realm. Even though Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives, his heart was as hard as iron. He wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. However, at this moment his painstaking plan finally came to fruition. He couldn't help but be so excited that his hands trembled slightly. Chapter 2051. In fact, when Jiang Tian entered the critical canyon, he had already confirmed the location of this tree through the records of his previous life. However, he remained calm and waited for the immortal light to erupt from the depths of the canyon to lure everyone over. Otherwise, once it was discovered, all the sages would snatch it. Fellow Daoist, isn't this Seeing how excited Jiang Tian was, Saint Qianma could not help but ask. Do you think this is the Cassia lotus tree? Jiang Tian could not help but laugh. How strange. Saint Qianma's divine sense spread out and her heart skipped a beat. Because the surroundings of the tree were especially quiet, what was fascinating was that this seemed to be a safe harbor. There was actually a deer wandering on the grassland, carefree and without any worries. In the small river that looked like a jade belt, the white crane drank and pecked at ease, elegantly and leisurely combing its feathers. The flowers were in full bloom and the birds and beasts were not demonized. There seemed to be no danger and no killing. Within a few hundred miles, it did not fit in with the entire canyon. It was like heaven and hell. Saint Qianma was familiar with this scene. What was truly shocking was that from the entrance of the canyon, the demonic qi was actually 10 times denser than this area. In other words, this area was peaceful not because it was closer to the mainland but because of other reasons. This is a pure land. Could it be because of the Cassia lotus tree? But this is clearly a mortal tree? Saint Qianma was slightly stunned. This is not the Cassia lotus tree, but the Six Paths lotus tree. The Six Paths Cassia lotus tree is the stem, but the branches are connected to an immortal lotus. Jiang Tian looked at the crown of the tree and could not help but sigh. The combination of 2 immortal plants and immortal flowers is very similar to the Cassia lotus tree in the mortal world. Back then, that mighty being was wise and far-sighted. When he planted the Six Paths Cassia lotus tree to suppress the demonic creatures, he guessed that one day the Six Paths Cassia lotus tree would be corroded by the demonic creatures and exhaust itself. Therefore he planted an immortal lotus seed here and connected it to the roots of the Six Paths Cassia lotus tree as a second layer of protection. In fact, it was even his final trump card. However, when the subimmortal tree of Six Paths Celestial Osmanthus collapsed, a vast amount of spiritual qi would be poured into the celestial lotus, nourishing its growth and strengthening, blocking the invasion of demonic qi and protecting the safety of the continent. Indeed, there are some details that are different from the ordinary Cassia lotus tree. It has a natural Dao and it has a hint of the heavens. Saint Qianma looked at the branches and leaves carefully and even the tiniest patterns. Suddenly she felt a sense of calmness. That feeling was very mysterious. His mind and body became lighter as if he could fly up and leave this world, straight into the vast starry sky, the 9 heavens deity realm. But why is there no celestial light or auspicious aura? Saint Qianma asked suspiciously. If we don't encounter any monsters, this item won't show its might. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Suddenly he took out a small bottle. With a flick of his finger, a stream of demonic blood rushed out from the bottle. This demon blood was the blood of a demon beast that Huang Linger and Sima Tu had casually killed when they were chasing after the flaming red toad. The demonic blood was already extremely thick. Following his divine sense, strange runes were drawn on the ground one after another. There were more and more of these runes and they gradually formed a chapter that surrounded the Six Paths lotus tree. Everyone was surprised when they saw this. They had never seen or heard of these runes before. However, it seemed to be very profound and obscure. Every word seemed to have come from a more advanced civilization. These are immortal seal runes. Saint Qianmo's heart skipped a beat as her beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. Immortal seal runes were very rare in this world. They came from the 9 heavens. Among the founding ancestors of the Luoying sect, there was one who was obsessed with runes and charms. He left behind a large number of ancient books everywhere, including stone rubbing, stone inscriptions, stone carvings, metal runes, and so on. Saint Qianma had once seen the drawings of a few immortal seal runes in one of his most precious ancient books. Of course, this ancestor was not sure, but he thought that it was very likely to be immortal seal runes. And now Saint Qianma felt that the runes written by Jiang Tian were very similar to the ones she saw in the past. I underestimated him. He is not someone from this world, but the reincarnation of a powerful being from the 9 heavens. At this moment, Jiang Tian's back view was even more mysterious and unpredictable in Saint Qianma's heart. In fact, Saint Qianma had guessed correctly. Jiang Tian had written the immortal seal runes. The items from the immortal world were very intelligent. They were said to have spirits and could communicate with the immortal seal runes. The immortal seal runes contained Jiang Tian's consciousness. When it merged with the Six Paths lotus tree, a strange scene happened. Silently, the tree trunk suddenly emitted auspicious colors and immortal light. It was beautiful, mysterious, and peaceful. It really is the immortal tree. When everyone saw this, their minds immediately surged and they were extremely shocked, and they almost cried out in surprise. Too quiet. However, they immediately realized that Jiang Tian was using the immortal seal runes to communicate with the immortal tree. It was similar to a kind of prayer and sacrifice to obtain its blessings and blessings. Of course, they could not disturb him. In an instant, many cultivators within a radius of 10 miles were motionless like clay statues. They did not make any sound. Everyone held their breaths and restrained their dermic powers. They stared at Jiang Tian as he wrote the runes to communicate with the immortal tree. Then an even more delightful scene happened. On the tree trunk, branches grew rapidly. Moreover, they were completely different from the previous branches. These new branches were as white as jade and crystal clear. At first glance, people would think that they were newly born bones. Not only the color and texture but also the shape. They really looked like the bones of humans and beasts. It was a little creepy, but there was also a mysterious and holy feeling. It was as if the sound of the great Tao could be heard. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. This tree was truly miraculous. It was simply like a god. At the moment when the crowd was dumbstruck, one of the branches extended out like an arm. One of the branches was like a finger, and it came into contact with Jiang Tian's finger. It seemed to be confirming Jiang Tian's identity. Immediately after, pink and white flower buds bloomed on the bone-like branches. After the flower buds bloomed, everyone realized that they were lotus flowers. They were 6-petaled lotus flowers. Each petal was the size of a bamboo hat and emitted waves of light. They were crystal clear and surrounded by auspicious qi. The fragrance flowed and spread out. When these multicolored lights and propitious vapors enveloped everyone felt as if they were floating in the air, their entire bodies feeling very comfortable. At this moment, everyone felt a close connection with heaven and earth, with nature and with the great Tao. It was as if they had become the master of this world. They were recognized by nature and resonated with the great Tao. In short, their bodies seemed to have abundant and irresistible power. It was as if they could break this continent with a punch. They were also extremely energetic. Their divine senses were unprecedentedly sharp and vast. The whole world was more real and clearer than before. Their souls were very lively. All kinds of negative emotions were gone. Peace and joy filled their hearts. They were even full of ambition and hope. It was as if there were endless possibilities. Of course, the one who had the biggest reaction was Huang Linger, who had the Yiwu's spiritual body. Countless rays of auspicious light and multicolored light poured into her head. Even the ground surged with auspicious light and auspicious colors, completely enveloping her, turning into 5-colored clouds that were brilliant and elegant. The place she was in was like the holy land of immortals. At this moment she was like a blooming immortal lotus. In an instant her skin was crystal clear like jade. Immortal light soared into the sky, overshadowing everything around her. Chapter 2052. The sound of Tao echoed around Huang Linger. The sound of Tao was very soft, like a flower bud blooming, like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon and spreading its wings. It was peaceful and quiet, but there was also a kind of vigorous vitality. When the soft sound of Tao reached everyone's ears, it was like a morning bell, shaking everyone's heart and bringing them closer to the laws of Tao. At this moment, Huang Linger cleansed herself with the supreme immortal light and auspicious qi. She was really like an immortal, peerless and unparalleled. At the very least, she was like a celestial being right now. She was invulnerable to all spells, untainted by all filth, untainted by even a speck of dust, and flawless. She was like a celestial being from the 9 heavens. Huang Linger also understood that Jiang Tian was guiding her fortuitous opportunity to help her break through. And this opportunity was too rare and precious. It was called an immortal opportunity. Not only was it rare in the divine origin world, it was also rare in the core area of the central galaxy, the legendary territory of the 9 celestial sects. Therefore she focused her mind and closed her eyes, eliminating all unnecessary thoughts. She opened her body and let the immortal light and spirit qi from the 6 paths lotus tree enter her body and cleanse her. And everyone was shocked to see that Huang Linger's cultivation was rising. From level 3 to level 4, level 5, level 6. She went all the way until she reached the late stage, perfected, and broke through to the soul formation stage. And she was still going up as if there was no end to it. Everyone even felt that. Her leveling up was not like an increase in cultivation, but an evolution in the level of life. It was like a cell evolving into an animal, an ape evolving into a Homo sapiens. There was a qualitative change. Of course, this was not an illusion. This was because her constitution was also improving. She had become an immortal grade nascent soul, and from there she had become a divine transformation realm cultivator. Damn, this leveling up is as easy as drinking water. It's indeed the deity tree. The effect of the immortal chi is so terrifying. It's like being reborn. At this moment, everyone was shocked and screamed in their hearts. Countless people were envious. Even Saint Qianmo was shocked. At this moment she finally realized how terrifying Zhou Xian was. Whether it was his strength or his experience, they were both hard to come by. At this moment she also understood that the relationship between Zhou Xian and Huang Linger must be very deep. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Zhou Xian had previously said that if the Luo Ying sect was faced with a calamity, he would lend a helping hand. But it was only once. That was because Lian Huahan was too heartless towards Huang Linger. She only treated her as a bargaining chip for the marriage alliance and did not cultivate her sincerely. If Lian Huahan valued Huang Linger a little more, Zhou Xian would definitely protect the Luo Ying sect for 10,000 years or even 100,000 years. However, it was too late to say anything now. Lian Huahan was too short-sighted and too utilitarian. Gradually, Huang Linger's cultivation progress slowed down. In the end, it stopped at the third level of the semi-god realm and stopped moving. Let's stop here. At this moment, Zhou Xian scanned with his divine consciousness and saw that the nascent soul had become a god and the spirit embryo had turned into a divine treasure. Moreover, it was an immortal grade divine treasure and a god. At this moment, her divine treasure was like a lotus petal, layer upon layer, including a god that was like a fairy in a flower. It was beautiful and moving. Huang Linger cried tears of joy. She had actually reached the semi-god realm. This was a kind of extreme sublimation. It was not only her. Mou Fong Jinlong Lin Yang Lin Hanqing Fong Goyu. The rest of the people's cultivation had also increased by more than one level. Even their grades had increased. All of them were overjoyed and were deeply grateful to Zhou Xian. They bowed deeply. This was like giving them a new life. Especially the disciples of Saint Qianmo. Speaking of which, they had nothing to do with Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian had joined temporarily as a servant. They had met by chance, but Zhou Xian had given them such a great opportunity. Immediately after, Zhou Xian calmly accepted their respect without saying a word. Then with a calm expression he wrote another immortal seal chapter with the fiend blood, prayed and communicated with the Six Paths lotus tree. Suddenly the tree was quiet for a while. Suddenly the branches shook and lotus flowers fell. At this moment the world was very quiet. Only the sound of the falling flowers could be heard. They were bright and clear like jade. The petals danced in the air and a fragrance spread out, flying into the pure land. Soon there was an extra petal in everyone's hand. It was as if it had a spirit. There were no more and no less. At this moment, everyone was shocked and in awe. This tree was not a demon, but it had a spirit. This was an authentic immortal tree. It was too magical. Zhou Xian spoke for the first time. Everyone, drip a drop of blood on the lotus petal in your hand. He panted and seemed to be a little tired. Writing an immortal seal was originally a very tiring thing. This time he wrote 2 chapters in a row. Although the immortal tree and the immortal puppet were naturally sensitive to fiend blood and he could write briefly without using Dharma power, it was still very tiring. No one dared to be negligent. Even Saint Qianmo dripped a drop of blood on the petal. And without exception, the drop of blood was absorbed the moment it landed on the petal. At this time Zhou Xian sat cross-legged under the tree and said lazily, "As long as you carry this lotus petal with you, you will be protected by the immortal light and can kill soul formation fiend beasts and fiend generals 1 or 2 times. You have 2 choices now. 1. Enter the depths of the canyon and explore for treasures. Secondly, protect me while I cultivate. I want to remind you that the road ahead is dangerous. You may not get anything or even lose your life. After all, although the lotus petal is strong, it has already left the trunk. The immortal light is limited and the number of times you can kill it is limited. Protect me. Wait until I step into the divine transformation realm. In this canyon I can be invincible and kill everything. By then if you follow me, are you afraid that you won't get anything?" As soon as Zhou Xian finished speaking, Eldest Princess Mou was the first to express her stance. All the cultivators of the Eastern Empire are willing to protect Senior. We will not hesitate to sacrifice our lives. Saint Qianma frowned and asked. Fellow Daoist, you want to use this tree to advance? Will it consume the life of this tree? At this moment she had already guessed the truth. This 6 paths lotus tree was the last barrier against the demonic creatures. If it was eaten by Zhang Tian, then the demonic creatures and fiend generals would also drive straight in and be unstoppable. Only the human cultivators could rush forward one after another and form a steel wall with their flesh and blood to stop the attack. However, that would mean that countless human cultivators would die. Of course it will consume a lot of energy. Zhang Tian took out a wine pot and took a sip of fruit wine. This tree was born too early. It's too young. I have a big appetite. I'm afraid I'll eat it until it's half dead. Saint Qianma trembled slightly and said, once this tree is damaged, I'm afraid the demon tide will be unstoppable. Do you have a plan to deal with the demon tide? Of course. Zhang Tian exhaled a mouthful of wine. Only 2 words fell, but he seemed very confident and certain. Saint Qianma's expression changed rapidly. Obviously, many thoughts flashed through her mind in an instant, and the ideological struggle was extremely intense. After a few seconds, Saint Qianma took a deep breath and said, that's right. Fellow Daoist, I'll trust you this time. Immediately she turned to look at all the disciples and said loudly, all disciples, set up camp and arrange the battle formation to protect fellow Daoist Jiang. Yes. Hua Xiangrong and many other disciples responded with a stern expression. They landed around the 6 paths lotus tree and set up the formation. Orders and prohibitions were strictly followed. Although Saint Qianma was not the sect master, she was a woman of her word. She treated people and things with sincerity. All the disciples respected her from the bottom of their hearts. We will also protect fellow Daoist. Princess Mou also gave the order. All the cultivators of the Eastern Empire were armed and guarded around Zhang Tian like the most loyal guards. This 6 paths lotus tree was priceless. It was fine if it was not discovered, but once it was discovered, there would definitely be giants coming to fight for it. And Zhang Tian was at the critical moment of breaking through. He was the most vulnerable and could easily die. Chapter 2053. Thank you everyone. Zhang Tian clasped his hands together and said. Then he walked to the 6 paths lotus tree step by step and took out a piece of top-grade crystal. The crystal contained traces of immortal spiritual energy. It was obvious that it was of a very high grade. In the years he spent in the Eastern Empire and the 10 years he spent as a transcendent mortal, Zhang Tian didn't just walk down the path of a transcendent mortal. Instead, he collected countless immortal crystals in preparation for his breakthrough to the divinity transformation realm. The immortal crystals were crystal clear and gave off thousands of rays of light. They floated in the air and looked very magical. Under Zhang Tian's will, they landed around the 6 paths lotus tree and formed an irregular and strange pool. After inspecting for a while, Zhang Tian found that the arrangement of the crystals was correct. He then walked into the pool and sat down with his legs crossed. Following a special pattern, he placed many immortal herbs and godly materials in the pool. They were all very valuable. How strange. Does this fellow cultivator want to take a bath? Making a pool? Sima too rubbed his chin and was confused. Everyone was also confused and did not know what Zhang Tian was doing. Why did he use such luxurious crystals with immortal spiritual energy to make a bath? Dragon transformation pool? Suddenly, Saint Qianma took a closer look and could not help but exclaim. This was a kind of formation knowledge, but it was very profound and mysterious. It was said that it came from the immortal world. Its name, Dragon Transformation Pool, was derived from the words, when a fish leaps over the dragon gate, it will transform into a dragon. This pool was very magical. It was said that if a loach was placed in it, it would transform into a real dragon. At this moment, Zhang Tian closed his eyes and thought for a while. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and used his blood essence to draw immortal seal runes. It was different from when he used his demonic blood to draw immortal seal runes. At this moment, Zhang Tian's face was serious and he seemed to be struggling. He gritted his teeth and every word he said was very powerful. These immortal seal runes that were drawn with his blood essence quickly formed a prayer and wrapped around the 6 paths lotus tree. The prayer text turned into blood-red specks of light. They seemed to have fused into the 6 paths lotus tree, but they also seemed to have been absorbed by the tree. However, the Six Paths lotus tree did not react at all. Not even a single petal fell from the tree. The six-path lotus tree, pure and untainted, above the heavens, pure and unparalleled. It cleanses my mortal body, cleanses my mortal bonds, and ascends to the heavens, transcends mortality and becomes a god. Jiang Tian's eyes were sharp as he silently chanted and prayed to communicate with the Six Paths lotus tree. All of a sudden the earth gushed divine spring. Streams of milky white spring water gushed out from the tree roots and tree trunks. This was the tree sap. It was milky white in color as if it was jade marrow. It flickered with fluorescent light. Flowers fell from the sky and the petals fell from the sky. Many six-path lotus flowers were sparkling and translucent. They carried dense immortal spiritual energy as they floated down beside Jiang Tian. The fragrance was strong, making one feel refreshed. At this moment, all types of crystals, precious metals and immortal crystals blossomed with precious light. Multicolored light flowed about and 7 colors curled about. It was extremely divine. As for Jiang Tian, at this moment he finally started to transform. He broke away from his mortal body and broke through to the soul formation stage. He sat in the dragon transformation pool. His body suddenly straightened and his bones rubbed against each other, giving off a crackling sound. His originally stooped body instantly became as tall and straight as a mountain. He had a dignified appearance. Everyone was shocked to discover that his aura had also changed greatly. He broke away from his mortal body and broke away from the mortal world. In an instant he became divine and ethereal, as if he could look down on the heavens and the 10,000 worlds. At this moment his black hair danced in the night wind. His bright eyes were as clear as a spring. His dark and old skin became as clear as jade. The lines of his face were gentle and perfect, with a kind of perfect divinity. In an instant, Jiang Tian turned from a dispirited and lonely middle-aged man into a peerless and otherworldly young cultivator. He was like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. He was shrouded in light and his white robe was otherworldly. This is the benefit of going further on the path of becoming immortal. The further you go, the more transcendental you will be in the soul formation stage. The higher you go. At this moment Saint Qianma saw this scene and exclaimed in shock. What if you don't go far enough as immortal? At this moment, Mou Lin Yang, Fang Goyu and the other cultivators of the Eastern Empire, as well as Hua Xiangrong and the other elite disciples of the Luoying sect, all surrounded her. At this moment Huang Linger couldn't help but ask. Going from the nascent soul stage to the soul formation stage is indeed a huge bottleneck in cultivation. From then on you will enter the later stage of cultivation. Saint Qianma said, the soul formation stage is like a kite released by a child, and the soul formation stage is like tying a string to the kite and holding it in the child's hand. This kite can naturally fly with the wind, but the prerequisite is that there must be a string. Otherwise, it won't be able to control the direction. It's like a fallen leaf in the wind. Although it can be blown high for a while, it will eventually fall to the ground. Everyone nodded as if they had understood something. Saint Qianma said earnestly, the soul formation stage is just an imitation of the gods, but it is not a real god. We are still mortals. Our cultivation and abilities can't reach that level. But when you control the great Tao of heaven and earth, you will always have a feeling that you are a god in the vast world. At this time it's easy to lose your Taoist heart, lose your true self and look down on mortals. In the end you will go mad and go against the great Tao of heaven and earth. But if you are a soul formation stage abyss, it won't be like this. Always remember that I am still immortal. I won't lose my mind and I won't be arrogant. Naturally, I won't go mad and pass the soul formation stage. I will go further to the void return and Tao reunion stage. As soon as she finished speaking, Jiang Tian's side changed again. At this moment, the array of the dragon transformation pool was activated. The milky white tree sap was boiling and dense. Deity Qi was soaring to the sky. Divine light broke the clouds and the world was blazing, making people unable to open their eyes. What's that? It seems to be Deity Qi. At this moment, the cultivators in the critical boundary valley all turned their heads and looked in the direction of the Six Paths lotus tree in shock. Could it be that an extraordinary deity material has appeared? Let's go. Let's go and have a look. Some of the cultivators looked at each other and then flew in this direction with determined expressions. Although treasures had appeared in the depths of the critical boundary valley and they had indeed gained a lot along the way, they had encountered more and more demons and demon generals, and they were getting stronger and stronger. But now, in a safer place, there was an even stronger deity chi erupting, which inevitably made people think that there were deity material there. If it was true, this would naturally be the first choice. After all, it was safer here. Lian Huahun, who had already gone deep into the critical boundary valley, had encountered many demons and was covered in wounds. Demonic chi lingered around her body. At this moment, she turned her head and looked in the direction of the Six Paths lotus tree with confusion and suspicion in her eyes. Could it be that the strange cultivator wasn't lying to me? Is there really a treasure trove of deities and deities there? However, she immediately shook her head and still didn't believe it. She led the disciples deeper into the critical boundary valley. Rumble. When Jiang Tian was bathed in the tree sap of the dragon transformation pool and Jiang Tian had absorbed enough deity qi, the essence qi in his body suddenly boiled. His qi and blood rushed into the sky like a dragon, directly turning into a dragon-shaped qi pillar. It split the heavens and the earth, parting the demonic qi clouds, and piercing through the heavens and earth like a peerless sword. At that moment, even the thick and evil demonic qi and deity qi and blood were torn apart by Jiang Tian's dragon-shaped qi and blood. It couldn't even withstand a single blow. At this moment, everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. What kind of physique was that? Could it be in deity-grade nascent soul? Could in deity-grade physique be so strong? He was only in the nascent soul realm, but he could produce such powerful and vigorous qi and blood. It was as if a true dragon of the 9 heavens had awakened. At this moment, Saint Qianmo noticed that Jiang Tian's spirit embryo had already transformed into a deity treasure. Jiang Tian's deity treasure was too majestic and vast. It was a deity treasure that flowed with deity light. Among them, the chaotic 9-orifice nascent soul was also rapidly evolving into a deity treasure. It was like a baby that was growing healthily, becoming a young man, stronger and more powerful. Chapter 2054. While Jiang Tian was in the midst of his breakthrough, many old immortals and living fossils on this continent woke up one after another, either because they had received a message from Saint Qianmo or sensed the unusual movement of the Six Paths lotus tree. In a world of ice and snow, a cold moon sprinkled down 10,000 rays of clear light. Ancestral court of the Frosty Moon Sword sect of the North Sea. This place was cold, otherworldly, transcendent, and clean. Suddenly the door opened. A beautiful middle-aged cultivator wearing a white robe embroidered with the image of a cold moon slowly stepped out of the door. His temperament was cold to the extreme and his sharpness was exposed. It was eerie and bone-piercing, like an unsheathed sword that was 10,000 years old ice. If someone looked closely, they would find that his skin was as clear as ice and there were small sword auras and runes of the great Tao on it. It was like a golden Buddha. It was no longer a body of flesh and blood. It was a body of laws and great Tao. Behind him, the disciples knelt on the ground one after another. Farewell, ancestral patriarch. We hope that you can enter the canyon and make a breakthrough to the void return level and become a Tao reunion perfected immortal. Even the current sect leader of the Frosty Moon Sword sect knelt on the ground. Immortal materials have appeared in the liminal region. An ancient sage has come out of seclusion, but there is also a demon tide coming. Those who follow will live and those who defy will die. The current sect leader of the Frosty Moon Sword sect had tears in his eyes and his expression was extremely tragic. The so-called ancient sages were experienced void return cultivators. They had a long lifespan and were called living fossils. They were nearing the end of their lifespans and usually only had a few hundred years left. If they couldn't reach the Tao reunion level and extend their lifespan, they would turn into a pile of dust and bones. This old man was the founder of the Frosty Moon Sword sect, a void return ancient sage. Sword demon. Dugachubai. Originally, he couldn't find the opportunity to break through, so he decided to go into seclusion for 100 years and wait for death. He didn't even care about the opening of the liminal canyon. That was because he thought that there wouldn't be any resources that could help him reach the Tao reunion level this time. But now he felt that there was an opportunity to reach the Tao reunion level. Okay. Sword demon Duguchubai only nodded. With a determined look on his face, he turned into a peerless ice sword and soared into the sky, shooting towards the critical canyon. Not only the Cold Moon Sword sect. Nine Mysteries Sect, Tianluo Sect, Luoying Sect, Reincarnation Sect, Thunderyang Sect. The figures of the ancient saints all turned into auras that pierced through the heavens and the earth as they flew toward the critical canyon. Even the Pill Cauldron peak of the Hall of Ancient Medicine, where Pill Sage Guhi had been in seclusion for 1,000 years, suddenly shone brightly. A beam of light shot toward the critical Grand Canyon. In the universe, from a mysterious unknown place, an old man slowly walked over. The old man walked out from the darkness. He wore hemp clothes that were sewn and patched up, making him look like a beggar's ragged clothes. The old man's appearance was also extremely haggard. His skin was as rough as the bark of an old tree. His qi and blood had long since declined to the extreme. Not even a trace of qi could be sensed from him. It was as if he was a person who was about to die. But this skinny old man crossed tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of miles with every step he took. The cold and desolate universe was like flat ground under his feet. Behind him was a little girl in a purple dress. She looked like a porcelain doll, but she was already a nascent soul cultivator. The cultivators of Saint Origin World are really getting worse and worse. 100,000 years ago, there were still people who could reach the Dao reunion level. But now there isn't a single Dao reunion perfected immortal in the entire continent. Indeed, the orthodoxy is incomplete and the immortal spells no longer exist. What a pity. Where is the great opportunity that I'm looking for? I'm so worried. Could it be in that canyon? Grandpa, what's the great opportunity? The little girl in a red dress asked vaguely while eating a candied hawthorn. I can't say. Don't let anyone hear it. The old man stroked his beard and said mysteriously, anyway, let's go there and take a look. In the next moment he sped up and rushed toward the critical canyon. At this time, after seeing the light of the Six Paths lotus tree and the commotion caused by Jiang Tian's breakthrough, many teams of sects and countries had returned from the depths of the critical canyon and were peeping not far away from the Six Paths lotus tree. It's really a deity material. A treasure tree, a divine tree. Have you noticed that Huang Linger, Sima Tu Dongfang Moyu and almost all of them have improved their cultivation? Everyone exclaimed. If they had known that there was a deity tree here, they wouldn't have gone to the depths of the critical canyon. They didn't even find the deity tree and they even risked their lives and went through cruel battles. Suddenly, someone's gaze landed on Jiang Tian. This kid used a deity crystal as a bathtub and the sap of the deity tree as a bath. What kind of great opportunity is that? The person exclaimed and his eyes shone brightly. In an instant, the gazes of the many cultivators outside fell onto Jiang Tian in unison. He might be able to reach the soul formation level and even the void return level. One of them murmured with envy and greed. Why? He didn't plant the deity tree. Why should he be the only one enjoying it? We have a share too. Suddenly someone said with hatred and greed. The entire world was his enemy. In an instant, Jiang Tian felt waves of crazy killing intent surging toward him. Auspicious qi gushed out and deity light filled the air. More and more cultivators gathered around the Six Paths lotus tree, and Jiang Tian instantly became the center of attention. The cultivators of the Eastern Empire and the Luoying sect also looked at the surrounding cultivators warily. Although there was no conflict, there was an undercurrent surging, and there was a sense of oppression as if a storm was coming. Would the dragon transformation pool become the place where Jiang Tian turned from a cocoon into a butterfly and soared into the sky and become a dragon, or a place where he died and turned into a pile of bones? Everyone realized that this place had been exposed and was no longer as peaceful as before. A great battle was about to break out. Thump. There was a muffled sound. In the dragon transformation pool, divine light flickered and shot out. It was so dazzling that people couldn't bear to look at it directly. Many cultivators were so agitated that tears flowed down their cheeks. That was the light that burst out from the vast amount of essence qi and immortal light. It was too tempting for cultivators. The dragon transformation pool wasn't big, only a few feet in radius. It was filled with the sap of the deity tree, which was milky white and crystal clear, as if there were stars sprinkling down. It floated slightly and the Six Paths lotus tree, various deity crystals, treasure medicines and divine metals on it rose and fell, emitting a fragrant and auspicious qi, as if it could give birth to a true dragon and let mortals be reborn. As Jiang Tian catalyzed it, dragons of spirit qi rose into the sky, and the immortal light turned into colorful clouds in the shape of various deity birds and divine beasts. It looked very magical. The scene became more and more shocking and vast. Dragons of spirit chi ran through the sky and the ground, and bright immortal light shrouded the 9 heavens and 10 lands, illuminating half of the canyon. Auspicious chi filled the sky and spread out continuously. At this time Zhou Xian was like a flawless deity, meditating in the dragon transformation pool. His clothes fluttered, his black hair fluttered like a waterfall, and his body was crystal clear. He was using the immortal chi to refine his body and wash away his immortality. Blood chi spurted out of his acupoints like a true dragon, surging like a tide, surging with power. His chaotic divine nascent soul was evolving and growing, quickly transforming into a god. Soon many divine grade laws were also being refined and solidified, turning into great Dao. A divine grade great Dao. Such a great Dao could be used in any situation, and its grade was too high. It was incomparably tough, dense and heavy like the ultimate truth, and it could easily destroy and suppress the great Dao controlled by ordinary return to void stage cultivators. Zhou Xian could kill return to void stage saints before, but that was only in the early stages. If he encountered a mid-stage void stage cultivator, his chances of winning would be extremely low. That was why he was sent flying by the Iron Hand Saint with a single slap. However, after breaking through to the soul formation stage this time, there would be a qualitative transformation. He could kill any soul formation stage cultivator regardless of their level or grade with a raise of his hand. He was not afraid of any return to void stage cultivators, even if they were veteran return to void final stage cultivators. His chances of killing them were extremely high. At this time Zhou Xian had not broken through yet, but everyone could already feel the terrifying pressure he brought about. In short, everyone felt as if they were facing a return to void stage saint, and the psychological pressure was extremely heavy. The scene was shocking and many people gasped. Chapter 2055. Just as everyone was attracted by the scene of Zhou Xian's breakthrough. In the depths of the canyon, where the demon tide area was bursting with immortal light and auspicious chi, the earth and mountains suddenly shook. Boom! The earth cracked and huge vines and roots rushed out from the ground, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws like octopuses. Each of them was thousands of feet tall, as black glue, and surrounded by demon chi. They were covered with bone spikes and surrounded by many demon chi laws. For a moment, the entire region in the depths of the critical boundary canyon was filled with demon chi, and black smoke rose into the sky, blocking vision and even divine sense, cutting off the laws. This world was suddenly filled with cruel and violent emotions, which could interfere with people's Dao heart and make people with weak hearts instantly become demon chi. All kinds of demons and demon generals appeared and attacked human cultivators, turning this area into a demon domain in an instant. Any cultivator who was in this place would feel a chill in their hearts and have an extremely bad premonition. Lian Huahuan's team. Not far away. The space was distorted like ripples on water, as if it could connect to another time and space. Roar. A few demon generals charged out from inside. All of them were covered in pitch-black scales, their fangs protruded outwards, and their faces were hideous and terrifying. They were like evil spirits that had walked out from a sea of blood and hell. They held evil sabers in their hands as they charged forward with a terrifying gust of wind. Fellow cultivators, save me. A nascent soul realm female cultivator of the Luoying sect held a pair of fiery red bracelets in her hands, which were surging with fire laws. One bracelet was thrown out and the other one was used to protect her body, but she was immediately at a disadvantage and cried for help in fear. Kill. Lian Huahan was shocked and attacked with her sword. With her void return cultivation, she used her full strength and barely killed a demon general. Several demon generals were pushed back, but she was already exhausted and panting, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Thank you for saving me, master. The nascent soul realm female cultivator had just bowed and thanked her with a joyful face and was about to fly toward the large flying ship. All of a sudden, a demonic vine the size of a giant palm reached out from the ground at lightning speed and grabbed the female cultivator, dragging her into the large crack. Ah! Master, save! The female cultivator's screams came to an abrupt end, and the world returned to a palpitating silence. However, in this deathly silence, there was also a sound that made one's scalp tingle. Crack, crack. It was the sound of teeth grinding against bones. Slurp. Patter. It was the sound of raw meat being chewed and bone marrow being sucked, making everyone nervous and nauseous. As expected, a demon general climbed out from the edge of the crack shrouded in black fog. He held a human leg bone in his hand, which should have belonged to that nascent soul disciple. He gnawed on it non-stop, causing blood to drip down, drenching his chest. His eyes, which were mostly white and had extremely small pupils, emitted an extremely cold light. He looked down at everyone with disdain, as if a high-level creature was looking down at a low-level creature. There was also a hint of greed in his eyes, as if all the cultivators were his food. Master! Everyone felt a chill run down their spines, and a wave of indescribable grief welled up in their hearts. This female disciple had been with them for many years, and their feelings for her were very deep. She was an innocent girl who stood aloof from worldly affairs, and she was very lovable. Some time ago she had been betrothed to an elite disciple of a famous sect, and they had planned to become Dao companions at the end of the year. Every time her fiancé was mentioned, she would reveal a shy and sweet smile, and her face would blush as she begged everyone to stop talking about it. She was nervous, but she also yearned for it. However, at this moment she had actually become this demon's food and died, causing everyone to sigh in regret. Kill him. Several disciples were furious, and their grief and indignation reached the extreme. They took out their Dharma treasures and Dao weapons and charged toward the demon general. Are you trying to show off to me? You're courting death. Even Lian Huahan was furious. Her pretty face was ice-cold as she took out her flying sword and slashed toward the demon general. However, the demon general did not continue fighting. He stomped his feet on the ground and soared into the air, falling into the crack and disappearing. Lian Huahan revealed a hint of contempt. She resentfully put away her flying sword and cursed. You can't even withstand a single blow. However, all of a sudden, Master, save me. Puff. Chi. At the end of the group, a few more demon generals suddenly attacked from the dense black devil fog. Several disciples were beheaded in the blink of an eye. Some had their spirit embryo divine treasures pierced by the demon weapons, and some were forcefully dragged into the crack. Lian Huahan and the others attacked, but it was useless. The demon generals' defensive abilities were astonishing. Their skin was rough and their flesh was thick. Ordinary true weapons and Dao weapons could not do anything to them. Only by taking out a sacred weapon several times in a row could they seriously injure them. However, human cultivators would often die after being contaminated by the devil qi. They could not hold on for long. Lian Huahan was stunned for a moment. Only then did she realize that she had fallen for the demon general's diversionary tactic. The demon general's actions, which were similar to a show of force, were only to attract her attention so that her companions could attack. You little rascal, hiding your head and showing your tail. Shameless demon, despicable and shameless. If you have the ability, come out and fight with me. Lian Huahan could not help but curse. However, the demon general was determined not to come out. Only the sounds of chewing, tearing, swallowing, and sucking came from the depths of the crack. There was also a wave of blood-curdling screams. These disciples were also eaten alive. Master, this demon general is so scary. The disciples under Lian Huahan were all trembling in fear. What's there to be afraid of? If you dare to come out again, I'll slap you to death. Lian Huahan said proudly. Haha, little worm, you're so arrogant. A shout shook the heavens and the earth. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, a violent pressure swept over, causing people to tremble in fear. Amidst the lingering devil qi, a demon race powerhouse who was 100 feet tall walked over. Half of his face had already turned into white bones. Some rotten flesh hung on it and rotten insects wriggled in it. However, the other half of his face was incomparably handsome. Patter. The cultivators of the Luoying sect all took a few steps back. The entire large flying ship regretted taking a few steps back. Do you want to have a try with me? This demon race powerhouse was wearing a purple copper armor full of traces of rust. No one knew how long it had been there. He held a pitch-black demon saber in his hand. Looking at his strength, he had actually reached the return to Void Realm. He should be called a demon general. The demon qi around him was so dense that it seemed to be solid. Fragments of the great Dao floated up and down, filled with a tragic will of destruction. Kill! Lian Huahan shouted. With an unyielding fighting spirit, she soared into the sky. He even took out a sacred weapon. With a fierce killing intent that seemed to be able to cut through the heavens, she charged toward the demon race saint. "You're just an ant." The demon general's face was full of disdain. He swept his large hand, like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, and grabbed the sacred weapon that Lian Huahun had thrown out. Crack. There was a sound. He suddenly crushed it. The sacred weapon's light dimmed. It was tainted by the devil qi and its magic power was exhausted in a matter of seconds. What? Lian Huahun was shocked. She had just destroyed a protective Dharma artifact, and had not had time to activate the rest. The demon general's fist had already landed on Lian Huahun's body. Whoosh! Lian Huahun was instantly sent flying more than 100 miles. She crashed through several mountain peaks before coming to a stop, her face covered in dust. Looking up, she saw that the large flying ship had already been smashed to pieces by the demon general. Many disciples scattered in all directions like headless flies. In the ancient horn, more and more demon soldiers poured out of the spatial passageways like dumplings. In the end, they surrounded the disciples of the Luoying sect like a tide. "Ah, save me. Spare me. Master, where is Master?" A large number of casualties appeared. Puff. A large hand covered in scales reached out and pierced through the chest of a disciple. Even the deity exploded. Swoosh. A blade with dark and dense demon qi swept across. A disciple's head flew out and was grabbed by a demon soldier. The demon soldier madly gnawed on the head, causing his mouth to be filled with blood. Before the headless corpse fell, 7 or 8 demon soldiers swarmed over and fought with each other. The corpse was torn into pieces. Roar. Sweet. The demon soldiers each held a piece of the corpse and gnawed on it. All kinds of organ fragments spilled out, dripping with blood. Chapter 2056. Where is Master? Zhongnu, please save me. The disciples of the Luoying sect screamed as they fell one by one. They desperately looked at Lian Huahun for help. This. Lian Huahun's eyes were wide open. Her pretty face was as pale as paper, and her delicate body trembled slightly. However, she did not dare to go forward and save them. He did not even dare to watch. At this moment she regretted it. She regretted not listening to Jiang Tian's advice. She had underestimated the enemy too much. It turned out that there would really be a demonic wave. The Luoying sect was just a typical example. In fact, most sects were weaker than the Luoying sect. When they encountered a demonic wave, they were even more miserable. At that time, at least 10,000 cultivators had died. Many sects were annihilated. Could it be that the immortal tree is really dead? Lian Huahun decided to retreat and not go any further. What exactly is that supreme demonic being? It actually managed to destroy the supreme immortal tree? Also, the Iron Hand Saint Lei Yongchang and the others have not returned yet. I don't know if they are dead or alive. Before retreating, she looked at the deepest part of the canyon with a trace of suspicion on her face. This immortal tree is not dead. It has been contaminated and turned into a demonic tree. Is this the supreme demonic creature, the Devil's Claws? Isn't it too powerful? At this time, the Iron Hand Saint Yang Yongchang and the others who had set off first had already reached the deepest part of the canyon. They were completely shocked by the scene in front of them. Huge fissures of unknown depth appeared on the ground as if they were connected to hell. In these fissures and ravines, huge tree roots were exposed. Some of them were surrounded by black demonic qi, while others were pure white and sparkling, as if they were flickering with immortal light. However, these immortal light and auspicious qi were still being invaded by the demonic qi and gradually dimmed. It was obvious that the immortal light was at a disadvantage. It would not take too long for it to completely demonize. What was more terrifying was, everywhere one looked there were white bones piled up like mountains. There were all kinds of bones. Some belonged to the human race, some belonged to the demon race, and some belonged to the demon race. The ground was littered with corpses. Some of the corpses were especially tall like mountain peaks, while some of the demonic beasts were only the size of a fist. It was not an exaggeration to say that their bones were like mountains. Moreover, there were many magic treasures and weapons scattered on the ground, but they'd lost their powers a long time ago and had even rotted from the corrosion of time, transforming into scrap metal. Taking a closer look, almost all of the magical treasures and weapons were damaged. Obviously, they had been through a fierce battle. Before their master had fallen, he had fought with his life on the line. He had fought and resisted, but he still could not escape the fate of death. What happened here? Even the soul formation cultivators couldn't help but shudder at the sight of this. Even returned to void stage saints couldn't help but shudder in fear. Let's go in. Just when everyone was terrified, the Iron Hand Saint still showed his strong side. He turned into a green light, passing through the mountain of bones and surging demon chi flying toward the depths. Even if the immortal tree was polluted, the Dao fruit it bore would not be damaged. If you can obtain it, there's a chance that you'll be able to progress to the Dao integration stage. As for helping a soul formation stage cultivator enter the return to void stage, it was almost 100% guaranteed. Let's go. Yang Yongchong was not willing to be left behind. He gritted his teeth and led his sect members to follow him. The Thunder Yang sect was best at thunder techniques, which were extremely strong and had some ways to restrain fiends. Then the major sects that were approaching the depths all chose to break in. This was because the beast tide outside had also erupted, and the risk of returning was extremely high. They might as well go in and try their luck with the so-called immortal opportunity. The closer the cultivators were to the depths, the more frightened they were. They were all extremely vigilant and uneasy. Boom! Suddenly their eyes lit up. Everyone saw a dazzling immortal light, and for a moment they all closed their eyes subconsciously. They saw a vast deity ground, enveloped in endless immortal light and auspicious chi, appearing in front of everyone. In the depths of the demon tide area where demon chi was rampant, it was so out of place, like a paradise. This can't be the immortal realm, right? Lei Yongchong couldn't help but murmur. The eyes of an old monster were as dreamy as a young girl's. Indeed, it gave people an illusion. It was really incredible. In the most desolate corner of the ancient demon's lock, where there was no life or spirit chi, there was a vast paradise hidden in a vast land of immortals. Everyone looked over. In the deity ground, white cranes and spirit beasts were flying in the sky, and an immortal tree towered into the sky. It was tens of thousands of feet tall, like a small world. Countless waterfalls fell from the trees like silver dragons, straight into the 9 heavens, shaking the heavens. The trunk of the tree was like a mountain, and there were all kinds of spirit herbs and spirit medicines that were shining with divine light. There was also a 1,000 feet long golden-winged rock soaring into the sky. Every time it rose and fell, it would grab a demonic beast that was 2 or 3 times larger than itself, and its cries shook the sky. Like iron chains, the aerial roots extended in all directions and pierced into the void of the earth. The demonized roots that everyone saw in the crack just now, which had both immortal chi and demon chi, came from there. The legendary immortal tree. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim. In the past, a supreme being had planted this tree to suppress the devil's claws and stop the beast tide. In the ancient times, it was said that this immortal tree had protected the Saint Origin world like a guardian, and it had killed countless demonic beasts and mighty demons. Could it be that all the demonic beasts in the white bones outside were killed by this tree? This tree was a subimmortal tree, and it was born with a spirit. When it was first planted, it didn't need to activate its intelligence at all. Its roots, branches and leaves could kill demonic beasts. Where is the devil's claws? Suddenly everyone asked this question. Their divine senses surged and searched under the immortal tree. After a long time they found something under the deity ground. It was a hand twice the size of an ordinary person with 6 fingers and scales on the back of the hand. It was floating in the air in an inconspicuous way, as if its chi and blood had dried up. Its fingernails were like swords, and the palm was covered with dark and strange patterns. However, everyone felt its filth and evil in an instant. It was as if it had the impulse to destroy and kill everything. It was full of evil, blood, and monstrous hatred. In the primitive times, the Emperor of Demons was seriously injured by Daoist master, and he fled back to the 9 underworlds. Before he passed away, he issued the 7 great demonic curses, cursing all things. Later, his body disappeared and only a claw was left. Anyone who got this claw would be possessed by the Emperor of Demons, and have unparalleled divine powers. Some cultivators felt the evil power and their eyes were filled with greed. They were deeply attracted by the devil's claws. I heard that the devil's claws are among the top 10 treasures in the demonic realm, and they are the most powerful and evil. Once you get it, you won't just be able to suppress the Saint Origin world and stand at the top, but you will be able to wrestle with the top 9 immortal sects. A half-step void return half-saint also stared at the devil's claws with fanaticism and said in a trembling voice. Chapter 2057. Damn it, we can compete with the 9 immortal sects. Doesn't that mean we can dominate the Saint Origin world? No, we can dominate all the small galaxies and continents around the Saint Origin world. Everyone's heartbeat quickened as soon as they heard this. Although the Saint Origin world was located in the central galaxy, it was still located at the edge of the galaxy. It was like a small town in a 4th or 5th tier county. It was incomparable to the core area of the 9 immortal sects, which was like an international metropolis. It was said that there had not been a Dao reunion perfected immortal in the Saint Origin world for 100,000 years. In any immortal sect, there would be several Dao reunion perfected immortals at the same time. Some of them were even related to the 9 Heavens immortal world, and some sect masters were the clones of the 9 Heavens immortal world. Although these were just legends and might not be true, at least it showed the strength of the immortal sects. Saints of the Void Return realm could already establish their own sects in the Saint Origin world, and they were the supreme beings of the immortal sects. But in the immortal sects they could only be elders. Every immortal sect had hundreds or thousands of saints of the Void Return realm. If they were unlucky, they could only be Hall Masters. As for cultivators of the Soul Formation and Nascent Soul realm, they were like dogs and their ranks were extremely high. But with this claw they could compete with the 9 immortal sects and achieve great results. Who could resist such temptation? The owner of the Devil's Claws will be affected by the 7 curses, and his temperament will gradually change. A half-step Void Return realm saint reminded and said in a deep voice. Although you have power, you have lost your original heart, and hatred for eternity will not be quelled, and you will be haunted by the desire to destroy the world. Are you still you? I'm afraid you're just a puppet of the Devil's Claws. His words instantly woke everyone up. Yes. Legend had it that once one became a demon, no matter how powerful he was, he would not be able to find peace and joy. He would never be satisfied and he would always want to kill and hate. Only killing and destruction could let him breathe for a moment. But it would only be a moment. Then he would be trapped in an eternal cycle of torture, and fighting and killing would become an instinct. Avoid the Devil's Claws, don't get contaminated, and find treasures. It looks like the Devil's Claws. At this moment the Iron Hand Saint gave an order and led everyone flew toward the deity ground. As soon as they entered, everyone had astonishing gains. This was a world formed from immortal trees, containing too many treasures. Not only were there precious medicines and immortal stocks, there were even precious metals and wondrous stones, as well as even more precious and mysterious great Dao gems. Gloomy treasure wood. I'm rich. A divine transformation sect master found a piece of gloomy wood and said excitedly, "This is a necessary material for making yin-yang pills. It contains Dharma laws and is very valuable. Quick, dig it up by the roots." Is this an immortal spring? The immortal spiritual energy is so dense that it refreshes one's mind. If I drink it every day, I will definitely be able to achieve a breakthrough. Another half-saint elder of the Holy Land found an immortal spring and immediately took out a bottle to absorb it. It was like milk, like fine jade, and was translucent. It flickered with a sparkling and translucent light, causing clouds and rosy clouds to rise. Various phenomena were present, and it was obvious with a single glance that it was extraordinary. Dragon bone fish. A cultivator discovered a strange fish. It was born with 4 legs and could run as if it was flying. Its bones were ground into powder, and it was a precious medicine for treating bone injuries. Don't even think about leaving. Sigh, fellow Daoist, I was the one who discovered this splendid fur silver rat first. This was a blessed land for immortals, called the deity ground. It was formed by a deity tree stolen from the outer realm by a mighty figure in the Middle Ages to suppress demons. After tens of thousands of years, the deity chi and auspicious chi filled the sky, giving birth to too many rare treasures and gems. For a moment, many cultivators no longer looked as aloof and untainted as they used to. They were like rats that burrowed into the ground and crawled into the sky, wishing that they could empty the deity ground and comb it with a fine-toothed comb. Then, while many cultivators were enjoying the joy of the harvest, they forgot about everything else. All of a sudden, the roots of a tree silently drilled out of the ground in the deity ground. The big ones were as big as dragons and pythons, and the small ones were as small as strange snakes and squids. They drilled out from the ground and hid their auras. They didn't make any sound and they didn't even have the fluctuation of Dharma laws. They were like poisonous snakes that had spotted their prey in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But a shrill scream suddenly sounded, making people's hair stand on end and their scalps go numb. Crack! A root as thick as an arm burst out from the ground and instantly straightened like a spear. It was as sharp as a sword and pierced through the cultivator's chest. Junior brother. Fellow cultivator. Many of his fellow disciples were shocked. They took out their Dharma treasures and Daoist weapons trying to rescue him. However, they didn't have time to use them. The root drained the cultivator's essence and blood in an instant and shrank into the ground like a spirit snake. However, in the blink of an eye, it burst out from a place 1,000 meters away and stabbed at another cultivator. Kill. This was a soul formation cultivator. He was calm in the face of danger and had been ready for a long time. He suddenly attacked with his Daoist weapon and cut off the root. However, the broken root had already pierced through the divine treasure in his chest like an arrow. Bang! Blood gushed out from the back of this soul formation grand cultivator, and he fell to the ground on his back. What was more terrifying was that the broken root had drained all his essence and blood in a short time after piercing through his chest. Even the deity ground inside his divine treasure had turned into dust. Cough, cough. This cultivator couldn't believe all of this before he died. His eyes were still wide open and he died with a grievance. What kind of monster is this? Some nascent soul realm cultivators with lower cultivation were horrified and were about to cry. They regretted entering this area. It's not a monster. It's just the immortal root being demonized. A mighty figure with extraordinary knowledge said with a trembling voice and a deep sense of fear. At this moment, they realized that many of the white bones they saw outside might have died in the hands of the immortal root. In the long years, the immortal tree planted by the grand cultivators tried its best to suppress and purify the devil's claws. However, this place was dark. Perhaps there were constantly fragments of the demonic realm falling in and providing energy to the devil's claws. The devil's claws were recovering and counterattacking. The immortal tree's situation became more and more difficult, as if it was a person who was exhausted. Or maybe it was contaminated by the devil's chi, and its spirituality was contaminated by the devil's chi. Or maybe it was a mixture of immortal and devil, and started to devour cultivators crazily to become its own resources. However, its spirituality was getting weaker and weaker, and its devil's chi was getting stronger and stronger until it was completely demonized. Even a veteran saint like the Iron Hand Saint had a grave expression on his face. This thing is evil. Fellow Daoists, remember to protect yourself first. Don't be greedy for cultivation materials. The demonization of the immortal tree was very rare. It combined the advantages of the immortal Dao and the devil Dao and had endless changes. Its killing power was fierce and hard to control. Even returned to void stage saints had an extremely high chance of dying. Whoosh, whoosh, kill. At this moment, giants like the Iron Hand Saint started to attack. They swept out like raging waves with monstrous dharma and sacred weapons, crushing everything. Chapter 2058. Crack, crack. One by one, the demonized deity roots were cut off and some cultivators were saved. However, those deity roots were still very terrifying. The broken parts could still escape, burrowing into the ground and merging with the main root, or continuing to attack like arrows. Only by completely crushing the demonized immortal root would they be able to prevent it from escaping and truly kill one of its roots. Poof poof. For a while, disciples were dying in this complicated deity ground filled with fiend chi. Screams were heard one after another. Many cultivators had been sucked dry by the demonized deity roots. But the treasures were too tempting. Many of them were treasures of the deity world. Some of them could increase their cultivation level rapidly, which was equivalent to hundreds or thousands of years of hard work. Some of them could be refined into Dharma treasures, which could increase their combat power by several times. Who could resist such temptation? Many cultivators were walking on the edge of life and death, but they still persisted in searching for treasures and were unwilling to leave, like mortals snatching food from a tiger's mouth. For a time, the immortal chi in this celestial ground faded away, devil chi surged and a ghastly killing intent filled the air. It was like an azura field filled with killing intent, shrill screams, cries for help and cries of joy from obtaining treasures. Most of the cultivators who had died so far were nascent soul and soul formation cultivators. Most of the Void Return Saints were able to resist, so none of them died. Most of them were only slightly injured. The Iron Hand Saint was safe and sound. He had obtained a lot of treasures, but he still felt uneasy and his face became more and more serious. He keenly felt that the fiend chi in this deity ground was getting denser and denser, and it was getting denser as more cultivators died. I can't stay here for long. I'll search for another 15 minutes. No matter what I get, I must leave. The Iron Hand Saint set a time limit for himself. However, he had just searched for a while. All of a sudden, the entire celestial ground shook violently. Even more terrifying cracks appeared on the ground. The giant deity tree, which was as hard as treasure metal and as green as jade, had black cracks on its trunk. Rays of black fiend chi shot out of the cracks like sharp swords. Rumble. A series of deafening noises came from inside the deity tree. It was as if a star was being extinguished, emitting its final wail and sound, shocking everyone. This is the immortal tree going to collapse? Countless cultivators raised their heads, their eyes trembling uneasily. Their faces were pale and their bodies trembled. This was a great collapse, a great omen, a great crisis. With the disappearance of the barrier blocking the Devil Wave, Saint Origin World was about to experience the Devil Wave tribulation. Whether it was the human race, the demon race, the sects, or the imperial court, all living beings would not be spared. All forces would be annihilated. At this moment, everyone's hair stood on end. Even though a portion of the immortal roots had been demonized, they did not expect the entire immortal tree to collapse. The demonic nature of the devil's claws was so strong and horrible that it could contaminate the things in the immortal realm. Rumble. With a huge explosion, the entire immortal tree collapsed. Pieces of the immortal tree's remains shot out in all directions like meteorites hitting the continent. At this moment, it was as if the world was about to be destroyed. The violent energy raged and the entire deity ground seemed to have been blown by a strong wind from the universe, destroying everything. The laws were in chaos. 3,000 great Daoists and endless laws clashed with each other at this moment. The world was colorful. 7 colors entangled, pulled, entangled, tore and merged. It was magnificent but also extremely dangerous. Many cultivators weren't even able to persist for a single flick of the finger before they were torn into pieces, crushed into powder, and incinerated into ash by the laws and grand Daoists that were like violent waves. In the wind wrapped in the laws and great Daoists, the cultivators were like wax in a fire. They could not withstand it. Retreat. Retreat quickly. Ominous, this place is ominous. For a moment all the cultivators were frightened. They flew across the sky like rainbows and fled out of the deity ground as fast as they could. Poof, 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 crack. During this process, everyone was shocked to find that the immortal tree's trunk had been destroyed. Although the trunk of the immortal tree had collapsed, the demonized immortal roots were not. Instead, they became thicker and more prosperous. Like dragons and pythons, they soared into the sky and attacked the cultivators like a raging tide. More terrifyingly, the demonized immortal roots became tougher and more terrifying. At this moment they seemed to be made of great Dao treasure metal. Even Void Return Saints would have a hard time breaking them. The demonized immortal roots even began to evolve. They grew eyes, fangs, and a wide mouth. They were intelligent like poisonous snakes and lizards. It was unbelievable and unimaginable. The cultivators who could enter the demonic tide area were all powerful and experienced. The speed of these cultivators was already very fast, but in just a few dozen seconds under the attack of the roots and the chaotic laws of chaos, half of them had perished. They died extremely miserably. They did not die without a complete corpse. They were completely erased from this world and returned to nothingness, devoured by the demonic chi. The Iron Hand Saint and 5 or 6 saints at the Void Return and Half-Step Void Return Saints escaped from the deity ground after countless dangers. Even though they were the most powerful cultivators in the Divine Origin continent, they were in a sorry state at the moment. They were covered in blood, their robes were tattered, and their magic treasures were dim. There was even demonic chi lingering around them. It's too terrifying. Their faces were pale as they looked back at the deity ground. Their hearts were still pounding and they were trembling. At this moment, a black beam of light shot up from the bottom of the deity ground and shot toward the bull. The next moment, the vast deity ground began to shake violently and crumbled. Giant roots extended in all directions like octopuses, shaking off the rocks and soil. What? What's that? Everyone was stunned, their eyes filled with fear. At the top of the root, there was a strangely shaped head. The head was covered in dense scales and had 6 long curved horns. Each horn was like a sword or a saber. The face was covered in strange patterns, and the eyes were slender and long like sharp knives, shooting out a cold and brutal demonic light. Together with the tens of thousands of roots that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, it looked like a giant octopus. The moment their eyes met, everyone's hearts tightened and their blood seemed to freeze. At that moment, everyone felt a sense of filth and evilness. A brutal murderous intent was so strong that it could kill all living things and destroy the world. That hatred was monstrous. That's the devil's claws. He has completely awakened. The Iron Hand Saint's eyes twitched. He cursed in exasperation and turned around to run. Everyone was shocked to find that the so-called head was the devil's claws, and the so-called horns were his fingers. However, the eyes and mouth had just evolved. Run. At this moment, many sect masters and emperors were running for their lives without saying anything. The devil's claws were said to be the remains of a demon god. Its power was unimaginable and could destroy all living things. Even the saints of the demon race had to bow down to it. In history, it had brought calamities to the divine origin continent time and time again. Even the void return saints would fall. Who wouldn't be afraid? Chapter 2059. But half of the demonized immortal roots suddenly broke into pieces and dug into the ground, heading for the 6 Paths Lotus Tree. In an instant, the entire critical Grand Canyon trembled, mountains collapsed, and stone peaks collapsed. There were endless rumbling sounds as if there were dragons rolling under the ground. The immortal roots that were scattered all over the Grand Canyon rushed towards the 6 Paths Lotus Tree like 10,000 carps paying homage to a dragon. In the end, they gathered within 100 miles of the 6 Paths Lotus Tree. There were so many deity roots that they piled up into mountains and hills. Even Saint Qianmo was shocked. Clap, clap, clap. Within 100 miles, countless immortal roots disintegrated on their own, and the ground caved in, creating huge ravines. The broken deity roots turned into endless deity spirit light that was extremely dazzling and surrounded the 6 Paths Lotus Tree in Xianxia. Bathed in endless immortal light, the 6 Paths Lotus Tree continued to grow taller, like bamboo shoots after rain, growing into a towering tree at a speed visible to the naked eye. The 6 Paths Lotus trees bloomed one after another. Their fragrance covered the entire area and made everyone feel like they were on cloud 9. In the depths of the demonic wave area, the devil's claws seemed to be able to see through the entire canyon. He shouted, "These old roots are so stubborn. They're so stubborn that they're willing to destroy themselves to become the food of the 6 Paths Lotus Tree. Hey, there's a deity-grade nascent soul here. It's definitely delicious and nutritious." Countless roots danced and his eyes were cold as he looked in the direction of Jiangtian. "Do you think you can run away? Then I'll devour the 6 Paths Lotus Tree and demonize." In the dragon transformation pool, deity light shot into the sky. The deity trees in the demonic wave area collapsed and the deity roots gathered at the 6 Paths Lotus Tree. The deity spirit chi was so dense that it was intoxicating. It was even going to crush the dragon transformation pool. Many people sucked in cold breaths. The deity spirit chi was too dense. In the past, a drop of it could cause a huge battle and make the cultivators fight. And now there was a sea of them here being used by Jiangtian's people. How great was this opportunity? From ancient times until now, only a few people had ever obtained it. Saint Qianmo was so shocked that she was speechless. She respected Jiangtian from the bottom of her heart. All of these developments were exactly as he had expected. He was simply a clairvoyant who had taken every conceivable possibility into account. However, Saint Qianmo was also shocked and uneasy as she scanned her surroundings warily. Now that the 6 Paths Lotus Tree had manifested, it would definitely attract the attention of many powerful cultivators and even sages. At this moment, everyone realized that the demonization of the immortal root was extremely dangerous, and the greatest opportunity lay within the 6 Paths Lotus Tree. Therefore, everyone retreated from the No Man's area and the Demon Tide area, arriving at the border. This included Lianhuahan. It was unknown how many cultivators were hiding within a few hundred li of the 6 Paths Lotus Tree, watching, coveting and ready to make a move. The 6 Paths Lotus Tree was an item of the deity realm. Who wouldn't want it? Putting aside the fact that Zhang Tian now had so many of them, just a single branch would be able to cause the saints to fight until the mountains and earth crumbled, the sun and moon turned upside down, blood flowed, corpses piled up into mountains, and the people were plunged into misery and suffering. Ding! Suddenly, a dragon's roar came from the sky. In the billowing demonic chi, someone sat high in the sky, playing a guqin and playing a mysterious tune. At first it was drizzling like spring rain, but suddenly, it was like a powerful army with weapons and spears roaring. The killing intent was like a flood pouring down from the 9 heavens. It carried a world-destroying aura as it crazily charged towards Zhang Tian. Even with Saint Qianma's protection and the many elites from the Eastern Kingdom and Luoying sect's protection, there were still people who couldn't resist and attacked. After all, the 6 Paths Lotus Tree was too tempting. Who wouldn't be jealous of an opportunity that only appeared once in 100,000 years? The guqin was a song called The Evil Wind. When the billowing demonic music entered one's ears, it could mess with one's mind and cause one to fall into a frenzy. It was clear that the mighty figure who attacked in secret was an expert in music. He wanted Zhang Tian to fall into qi deviation so that he would be defeated without bloodshed. Saint Qianma's expression was flustered and she was helpless. Initially, she was rather proud and thought that she could definitely protect Zhang Haotian with her cultivation strength. However, she did not expect the first enemy to attack in secret to be so difficult to deal with. Suddenly, anger, menacing, fear and confusion appeared on Zhang Tian's initially calm face. Clearly, he had been disturbed by the guqin music. She wanted to charge into the skies and destroy the mastermind. However, she was worried that Zhang Tian would have no one to protect him. "Senior, let me do it." Eldest Princess Mou summoned a guqin and let it float in front of her. She pressed the strings with both hands and played at the same time. Above the 9 heavens, a clear and loud cry sounded. It was so beautiful that it was difficult to describe. Even if 100 birds sang together, it would be difficult to compare to it. 12 divine sounds of Longhuan. Boundless chant. With the heart as the guqin and the 7 emotions as the strings, one played with true intent to produce a silent immortal sound that resonated with the other party's heart. At that moment, Zhang Tian's expression returned to calmness. At this moment he was immersed in breaking through once more. His heart was clear and his mind was calm. External fiends and evil thoughts could not enter and his worries were purged. Above the skies, in the depths of the fiend qi, the guqin snapped and the figure shattered into pieces, falling into the void as well. If that person wasn't affected by the fiend qi, he should be at void reversion cultivation realm, right? To think that he would be killed by eldest Princess Mou in a single strike. Dongfang Mou is way too powerful. Many cultivators were shocked and shuddered. Eldest Princess Mou's guqin music was murderous, shattering laws and breaking great Daoists. She had the power of a void reversion saint. It's an essence spirit puppet and not a real person. Eldest Princess Mou's face was pale. The consumption of the attack earlier on was no small matter and this was only a puppet. Saint Qianma could sense it as well. The strength of the true body of this puppet was probably at the level of the sect master of a major sect. A hint of worry appeared in her eyes. However, she still shook her sleeves and scanned her surroundings, shouting coldly, "I'm here to protect you. I am standing guard for fellow Daoist. If anyone dares to take a step forward, they will be destroyed." There was silence all around. No one said a word. Within 100 miles, there was no one else apart from the Eastern Empire and the Luoying sect. No one invaded rashly either. However, that did not mean that Zhang Tian was safe. However, 100 miles away, countless mighty figures were hiding in the dark of the fiend qi, coveting and spying with hostility. Endless killing intent could be seen from time to time. Those hidden people were like hibernating poisonous snakes, waiting for the moment their prey slacked off before they would immediately erupt and kill Zhang Tian cruelly. Although Dongfang Mou's consumption was not small, he still insisted on playing the 12 divine sounds of Longhuan, Central Pine Illumination, Overlooking the 9 Heavens, and other chapters. In the dragon transformation pool, Zhang Tian sat motionlessly. His aura was indistinct, like an old monk in meditation, and his Dao heart was calm. At this moment, the sound of the zither flowed like a gurgling spring. It flowed past the pure white stones like a full moon hanging in the middle of the pine forest. The cool breeze blew gently, blowing the pine trees up and down. It also blew into Zhang Tian's heart. It allowed him to immerse himself better in his own path. His embryonic form as a god reflected nature and deepened the connection of the great Tao of heaven and earth, connecting the endless laws of the three realms. Chapter 2060. Many six-path lotus flowers floated around Zhang Tian like celestial flowers with Tao rhythms. The immortal flowers connected with the great Tao of heaven and earth and gathered the immortal spirit qi of the dragon transformation pool. They washed Zhang Tian's body, nourished his nascent soul and transformed it into a god, paving the way for the formation of the divine treasure. At this moment, beams of immortal light surrounded him and spirit qi flowed on every inch of his skin. This was not an ordinary essence, but the essence of the six-path lotus tree. All the pores on his body opened and the immortal spirit qi turned into light that kept going in and out. His organs and bones were dyed with a layer of dazzling light. A divine treasure that was like an immortal palace was finally formed. At this moment, the great Tao heavenly sound resounded in the sky and on the ground like a huge bell. People couldn't understand what it meant, but they could feel a vast divine sound reverberating, like the evening drum and morning bell. It was so loud that it made people alert and enlightened. At this moment, everyone looked at Zhang Tian in shock. Huang Linger and the others all had hopeful looks on their faces. Tonight, perhaps a supreme giant would come into being. Whether the fish could transform into a dragon or not would be revealed tonight. Once he took a step forward, the sea and sky would be blocked and the abyss would be thousands of feet deep. It's terrifying. He's just a nascent soul cultivator and I feel that he has the power to crush a sage. His physique is terrifying. When he's in seclusion there will be the sound of the great Tao. This is extremely rare, but if there are no accidents, those who have such a phenomenon will become a supreme expert. But this immortal flower tree can make him grow so quickly. It's indeed priceless. I guess more and more sages can't sit still. Not all the cultivators outside would make a move. Many overlords didn't have the strength to make a move even if they wanted it. After all, Saint Qianmo was protecting him. But they guessed that many sages would make a move. Firstly, the immortal opportunity was tempting. Secondly, Zhang Tian's growth was too terrifying. Once he rose, he would become their great enemy. All of a sudden, screech! A strange-looking saint weapon suddenly appeared above the six paths lotus tree. It shone with golden light, had 2 wings and was as sharp as an eagle's beak. No one had ever seen this saint weapon before. It was extremely unfamiliar to them. However, just by looking at its vast magic power and the sonorous sound of the great Tao, one could tell that this was a genuine holy weapon. Only a true return to void stage sage could control it. Tila. Bang. This saint weapon expanded in the air, instantly transforming into a golden-winged great ping. As if cast from precious gold, it was dazzling and resplendent. It spread its wings and swooped down towards Zhang Tian. Wind and thunder surged and its aura shook the heavens. Everyone's hearts shrank. It was clear that another saint could no longer sit still. He wanted to kill Zhang Tian and snatch the great fortune of the six paths lotus tree. However, he was unwilling to reveal his identity and use a magical equipment that he had never seen before to kill Zhang Tian. Little rascal, hiding your head but showing your tail. Saint Qianmo looked into the sky with a deep gaze. Her robes fluttered and her robes fluttered. With a soft holler, the heavens shook and the earth shook as though the world was about to collapse. The next moment she reached out with her right hand and it expanded like a mountain, grabbing towards the golden-winged great ping in the sky. Many cultivators were stunned. Saint Qianmo had always treated others generously and was calm at the void-pierced stage, causing others to forget about her terrifying strength. Her attack was truly terrifying. She treated the heavens and earth as though they were in her palms. Screech! The golden-winged great ping shrieked and reverted to its true form in the hands of Saint Qianmo before falling rapidly. Cracks appeared on its body and its magic power was almost destroyed. With its remaining magic power, it dashed out of the valley like a stray dog and disappeared into the surging fiend qi in the blink of an eye. Boom! 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 Killing intent surged like a tide and arrived instantly. Suddenly, thousands of sword beams arrived and appeared around the dragon transformation pool. Another saint-level expert had made his move. They wanted to kill Zhang Tian. This time round, killing intent filled the skies and countless people attacked. The sword beams were like a tide and this was only the first wave. Immediately after, a huge seal appeared out of thin air and turned into a green mountain that smashed down. Apart from that, there were all sorts of phenomena. Tut! Saint Qianma shouted and spat out a wooden sword. It was filled with vitality and laws entwined around it. She swept through the surroundings and the sword slashed everything. The green wooden sword repelled all the attacks. Crack, crack. All sorts of Dharma treasures were shattered and the phenomena were destroyed, turning into green smoke and ashes. Apart from sacred weapons, almost nothing could escape from her wooden sword. Saint Qianma burned her divine essence and used all her cultivation to protect Jiang Tian. She used all her strength and burned her divine essence blood to repel the attacks. In an instant, a group of people were shocked. Saint Qianma scanned the surroundings and said in a deep voice, "Fellow Daoists, you are all void reversion saints, the pillars of this mainland. You are the last hope and trump card of the people. It is your responsibility to protect your land. Right now, the immortal tree is collapsing and the immortal root is demonized. The demon wave is coming and everyone should head to the depths of the valley to work together to resist the demon wave and protect the people. Why are you still here and fighting with us?" The surroundings were silent. Suddenly, a voice drifted in and out of the blue. Sometimes it was to the left, sometimes it was to the right, sometimes it was to the front, and sometimes it was to the back. "Fellow Daoist Qianma, what you said is nonsense. The saints are indeed the pillars of this mainland. It is their responsibility to protect their land, but they also have to cultivate and improve." How did the saints come about? They reached the void reversion realm by killing, robbing, and fighting. It's not something that can be achieved with the approval of the people. The immortal chi of the Six Paths Lotus Tree is so good. It only appears once every 10,000 years. Why would we give it up? Besides, you asked us to fight against the demon wave. Why don't you go? You seem to have broken through 2 levels after enjoying the immortal chi. We haven't. Besides, the immortal tree is an ownerless item. Or rather, it belongs to the entire mainland. Why should that kid use it first? The last question seemed to be heard from all directions. Saint Qianma said with a serious expression, "I'm not here to absorb the immortal chi. I'm here to protect fellow Daoist Jiang." She did everything for the sake of justice, but no one believed her. Or even if they believed her, they had to take the side of justice and kill Jiang Tian by force. Saint Qianma tried to persuade her. "The demon wave is terrifying. The entire mainland is in danger. This fellow Daoist has an extraordinary foundation and rich experience. As soon as he reached the soul formation realm, his strength is much stronger than ordinary saints. He may be the only hope to fight against the demon wave." After Saint Qianma said that, there was silence again. Suddenly, the ethereal voice came again. "Qianma, no matter how nice your words are, I won't believe you. Hurry up and get out of the way. We, the 13 sages, will kill this unworthy brat and split this immortal destiny equally. If you know what's good for you and back off in time and don't fight against us, we'll give you a share of the immortal opportunity." This person showed his trump card. The 13 void reversion saints teamed up to kill Jiang Tian and snatch the immortal opportunity. It was really terrifying. Even Lian Huahun had a look of terror on her face as she sent a voice transmission with her divine sense. "Senior Qianma, it's not worth offending so many void reversion saints for a mere quasi-soul formation realm cultivator. Maybe the entire Luoying sect will be affected." Chapter 2061. Lian Huahun's worries weren't unfounded. Even the entire Luoying sect didn't have that many void return saints. Theoretically speaking, the saints present could even level the entire Luoying sect to the ground. However, Saint Qianma didn't reply to her. Her eyes were extremely firm as she said angrily, "I'm here and I won't back down. If you want to snatch the immortal opportunity, you'll have to do it over my dead body." Whoosh. Suddenly, the sky shook like a piece of cloth. An overlord crossed the sky and appeared beside Jiang Tian and Saint Qianma. He attacked fiercely and his murderous intent surged like a tide, as if an ancient beast had attacked. Buzz. The earth trembled and the sky trembled. The space was torn apart and ripples appeared. This saint held a saint weapon that had never been seen before. He interweaved the patterns of Dao and logos and pounced towards Saint Qianma. Clang. As soon as the attack was unleashed, the surrounding space was instantly annihilated and shrunk. This man was wearing a mask and his fighting spirit was soaring. His blood chi was like a dragon and he was extremely powerful. He was definitely a master of the Void Return realm. Mou Lin Yang and the others gasped at the same time and felt as if they had fallen into the abyss. This was the first time a Void Return cultivator had shown himself, and he was very straightforward. "Senior, watch out." Everyone shouted as they broke out in cold sweat for Saint Qianma. "Coward, you don't dare to show your true face. You finally understand that your actions can't be exposed." Saint Qianma's eyes were indifferent and her snow-white sleeves fluttered. Her Tao was natural and she was one with the heavens, like an immortal walking in the mortal world. She formed a hand seal with her right hand and shook it in the sky. Boom. In the sky, numerous runes appeared out of thin air around the handprint. They seemed to be carved from green jade, simple and natural. They contained wood element aura and dense vitality. It was as if they contained a small world, and they formed a protective barrier that protected Xianxia. It was both offensive and defensive as it pushed outwards. Boom. With a shake, the space collapsed and an extremely vast energy surged wildly. Many cultivators within a 100-mile radius were thrown off their feet. Even soul formation cultivators were frightened as they felt the peerless pressure. On the ground, a 10-mile-long crack appeared where the two collided. It was like the Grand Canyon of East Africa. It was a mess. However, behind Xianxia, it was like a pure land, not affected in the slightest. Puff. The return to Void Stage Saint's holy weapon was shattered, and he was blasted back with blood gushing from his mouth. Inside his body, the inner world collapsed with a loud rumble. The void no longer existed and only the divine treasures were left. His cultivation base dropped from the return to Void Stage to the Soul Formation Stage after being struck by the Qianma seal. "Qianma, I'll remember this." That person roared, filled with boundless hatred. Then he flew into the distance, directly leaving the liminal canyon. Looking at Saint Qianma, she was perfectly fine. She didn't even pant and was extremely calm. "I've already shown mercy." Everyone was shocked beyond belief. Saint Qianma was too strong. As expected of a mighty figure, he was able to instantly degrade another return to Void Stage Holy Man's cultivation base by a major rank. Lin Yang and Fang Goyu both had reverence on their faces. They were full of confidence in Saint Qianma. However, eldest Princess Mou was still worried. "Senior Qianma, please don't show mercy. Only by killing him directly can we intimidate these rascals." Senior Qianma had only defeated one return to Void Stage Holy Man. There were still many left. Plang. Suddenly, a large hand reached out from the void. It was simple and unadorned. There wasn't much energy fluctuation, but it gave people a feeling that it could pluck the stars and grab the moon. The fingerprints were like the Milky Way and the fingers were like heavenly pillars. "Senior, how could you?" Saint Qianma's eyes were filled with shock as she shouted. It was obvious that she had already recognized the person who attacked. This person should be very senior. He was definitely a living fossil that wouldn't die. "Qianma, this old man only has 10 years left to live. Only by obtaining the immortal fate can he extend his life. I really have no choice." The voice of this living fossil was desolate and carried a deep sorrow, causing people to feel the sorrow of a fox mourning the death of a rabbit and the death of its kind. Even returned to Void Stage holy men usually only had a few thousand years of lifespan. If they were lucky or used secret techniques to extend their lives, they might be able to live for 10,000 years. However, they couldn't live as long as the heavens and would eventually die. Although the living fossil sounded helpless, his attack was merciless. His large hand covered the sky and grabbed towards Jiang Tian like an eagle hunting a rabbit. "Senior, he's the only hope to resist the demon surge." Saint Qianma's eyes were anxious. She gritted her teeth and suddenly soared into the sky. Like a phoenix dancing in the 9 heavens, she raised her sword towards the sky as if she could shatter the stars and pierce the sun. Boom! The sky seemed to have collapsed. The giant hand shattered into pieces and turned into ashes instantly. However, Saint Qianma crashed into the ground like a meteor, creating a deep pit. "Senior Qianma." "Master." "Elder." A wave of exclamations of surprise rose and fell, and they carried regret and concern. Everyone looked at the scene in the deep pit in shock. Even someone as powerful as Saint Qianma was injured. Her Taoist robe was tattered, revealing a large area of her snow-white skin. Her skin was covered with bloodstains and blood kept oozing out of her mouth. Lian Huahun also saw that her inner world was showing signs of collapse. "Senior Qianma, why do you have to do this?" Huang Linger Hua Xiangrong Mou Lin Yang, and the others quickly flew over and protected Jiang Tian and Saint Qianma like a human wall. This is troublesome. At this moment, everyone looked at the sky with their scalps tingling. This old fart could even injure Saint Qianma. His strength was as terrifying as a dragon. At this moment, an old man stepped on the air and landed steadily in front of Saint Qianma. He looked old and was wearing an old green robe. His waist was hunched and he had chicken skin and a crane head. His eyes were cloudy and he exuded an aura of declining vitality. He panted with every step he took as if he would die soon. He looked at the 6 paths lotus tree and Jiang Tian. His eyes flashed with greed as if they were all food. Kill. Feeling the murderous intent towards the old man, Mou and the others looked at each other and gritted their teeth. They were about to fly into the air and stop the old man. No. You are no match for him. Saint Qianma struggled to stand up. Endless sadness and despair appeared at the corner of her mouth. Do you know who he is? Xianxia. As soon as she said that, everyone was stunned. Even Lian Huahun and Mou's divine soul trembled. It's him. Isn't it rumored that he went to the 9 major celestial sects in the core starfield to look for opportunities? How? There are also rumors that he has passed the tribulation and become an immortal. Many people were discussing and whispering to each other. Xianxia. She was a legendary figure, the patriarch of the patriarchs, the saint of the saints. She was once the teacher of Dongfang Run, the founding emperor of the Eastern Empire. She had also taught several generations of 9 mysteries sects patriarchs. Chapter 2062. In that era, Xia Zhongying was recognized as the #1 genius. He had the sacred body of the human race and was the most powerful person in the divine continent. Even the alchemy sage Gu He, the ancient medicine hall's master, had to admit defeat when he met him. Haha, genius. Sacred body? In the central galaxy and the 9 major celestial sects, sacred bodies are just trash. He shook his head and sighed. His smile was bitter and his eyes were red as if tears were about to fall. When I went in, I didn't even have the chance to be a servant. My sky was broken and it took me 100 years to recover my cultivation. It was obvious that he had gone to the core of the galaxy to make a name for himself in the 9 major celestial sects, but he had failed. It sounded simple, but everyone was shocked and their hearts palpitated. This revealed a terrifying piece of information. The geniuses of Saint Origin World, the overlords of Saint Origin World, had run into obstacles time and time again in the central galaxy. They had suffered countless setbacks and even broken through the void sky. The 9 major celestial sects were really high up and looked down on the other worlds. People sighed. Since ancient times, beauties would lament that heroes were not allowed to see old age. Xia Zhongying's life was full of troubles. He was no longer as handsome as he used to be. All he had was endless sadness. In fact, even the return to void stage saints who were hiding in the shadows were struck by shock and sorrow. Thinking back to 4,000 years ago, he was handsome and looked down on the world. Looking at him now, he was like a withered piece of wood, thin and weak, about to rot. How sad was this? A beauty at the end of his life and a hero at the end of his life were the most helpless sorrows in the world. He was a heaven-warping genius with a world-shocking appearance. He was originally the pride of his generation, yet he ended up in such a state. It made one sigh and shed tears. In an instant, a sense of urgency rose in their hearts. They grieved for the death of their own kind. Even Xia Zhongying was about to die. Their talents were not even as good as Xia Zhongying's. Wouldn't they be even more lonely and sad in their later years? Senior, it's natural to be born, grow old, get sick and die. There's a time when a person's strength is limited. Since you can't fight against it, you should follow the heavenly Tao. Saint Qianma said one last time. It wasn't that she was afraid of death, but once she died, no one would be able to protect Jiang Tian. She could avoid fighting, she would. Xia Zhongying looked at him with disdain and said coldly, mediocre. Qianma, you are too mediocre. A few thousand years ago, I discovered that you were very mediocre. Cultivation has always been about using the heavenly Tao, fighting against the heavenly Tao and fighting against the heavenly Tao. If I had complied with the mandate of heaven earlier, why would I even bother to cultivate? Saint Qianma said, since Senior wants to fight back, why did you withdraw from the 9 sects? Why don't you go and fight for it? Xia Zhongying stared blankly for a moment. Her eyes seemed to flash with thousands of words, but she suddenly smiled and coughed. You little girl, you're quite clever. You are stalling for time. Unfortunately, the old man won't fall for it. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and grabbed at Jiang Tian. Kill. Saint Qianma suddenly attacked and pointed a finger at Xia Changjing. Kill. Moreover, the hundreds of disciples led by Hua Xiangrong had already lined up behind Saint Qianma. They shouted in unison, and the magic power in their bodies surged, sweeping across the sky like rivers returning to the sea, majestically focusing on Saint Qianma. With the support of the battle formation and the magic power of hundreds of disciples, Saint Qianma's cultivation seemed to be rising steadily, reaching an unprecedented height. That finger was extremely powerful, as if it could shatter the sun and the moon and break the sky. Xia Zhongying waved her hand and flung her sleeve. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering sound rang out, as if mountains and rivers were gushing out from under her sleeve. The abundant and irresistible power crushed the void, shattering the 3,000 great Daoists and obliterating the endless laws. Bang bang bang. In the sky, many disciples of Luoying's sect flew out crazily and exploded in midair. Under Xia Zhongying's attack, these spirit transformation realm and elite disciples were like eggs under a 1,000-kilogram boulder. They didn't even last for a second before their corporeal bodies and spirit embryo divine treasures exploded into a mist of blood. As for their magical treasures, they were all shattered into pieces. Only Saint Qianma was left, spitting out blood as she flew out. Huang Linger hugged her and landed on the ground. Is so terrifying. She is indeed an unparalleled giant who has been famous for thousands of years. At this moment, everyone exclaimed. Everyone was dumbfounded and shocked. Many people's teeth were chattering and they couldn't say a word. Although Xia Zhongying was a void return saint, it was too shocking for her to crush soul formation grand cultivators like killing ants. The key was that she was already at the end of her life and her corporeal body was about to rot. She didn't have much energy and yet she was still able to beat Saint Qianma so badly. At this moment, the foundation of her divine treasure was about to be destroyed. Next, her palace would collapse and her divine treasure would be damaged. She would be at the mercy of others. Xianxia, you are so ruthless. They are all extraordinary and will be the pillars of the continent in the future. The demon tide is coming and we still need them to fight. Seeing so many of her beloved disciples die, Saint Qianma felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. She let out a shrill cry and tears of blood flowed from her beautiful eyes. Blood foam kept seeping out of her mouth. As soon as she finished speaking, suddenly there was a rumbling sound. There was another earth-shattering explosion in the direction of the demon tide. Dark fiend qi shot up to the sky. An extremely cruel, evil, filthy and ferocious emotion swept over like a raging wave. The demon tide is really coming. I received a message saying that the deity tree in the demon tide area has collapsed. It has completely collapsed. But without the deity tree's suppression and obstruction, the demon tide will be unstoppable. Everyone was alarmed, feeling as if an extremely terrifying existence was awakening and surging over. After listening for a while, Xia Zhongying shook her head and said indifferently, "They are only the pillars of the continent in the future. Even if you, Saint Qianma, are the pillars of the continent now, I will still kill you. Nobody can stop me from moving forward. So what if there is a demon tide? Compared to the 9 celestial sects, the Saint Origin continent is just a muddy pond with a few rotten fish and shrimps. If they die, they die. There is nothing to feel sorry about." Xia Zhongying was extremely indifferent to her own kind. She only wanted to become stronger. After seeing the outside world, her Taoist heart was hurt and she was in extreme self-denial. She didn't even care about her own race. The Eastern Empire can't stay out of this. Protect Senior. Boom. Elder Princess Mou shouted and shot up to the sky, blocking in front of Xia Zhongying. Her divine treasures shone brightly and roared. A carefully made guqin was placed in front of her. Waves of sound waves condensed on the strings ready to be released. Her face was full of determination. She had completely thrown caution to the wind. Xia Zhongying was the master of the founding emperor Dongfang Run. Strictly speaking, she was also the ancestral patriarch of the Dongfang family. "I'll go too." Lin Yang also shot up to the sky. Then Fang Goyu, Lin Hanqing, Fang Jinlong, and even the youthful-looking disciples of Starfire Academy and the great sects of the Eastern Empire all gritted their teeth and blocked Xia Zhongying's path. Some were determined, some were helpless and some were fearful. All of them were indomitable gods that roared furiously, or their nascent souls howled, and they each spread out their own domains and forbidden regions. They interweaved the markings of the Daoist principles, and they lay across the sky and firmly protected Xianxia behind them. All of them had determined eyes and were ready to die. For a moment, their power covered the sky and approached Xianxia. Chapter 2063. Sai. In front of Xianxia, the cultivators of the Eastern Empire are just ants. Many cultivators with profound Dao side. The combined strength of eldest Princess Mou and the others was only comparable to Saint Qianma and was even slightly inferior. How could they fight against Xianxia? However, their resoluteness, that type of solemn and stirring atmosphere infected the crowd, making them feel sorrowful. This was the last barrier to protect Xianxia. Everyone's fighting spirit was boiling. However, Xianxia sneered and pressed forward unhurriedly like a mountain with a heavy aura. Many of you are the descendants and subjects of Dongfang Run. Hurry up and retreat. I won't kill you. Xianxia's voice was old and he seemed to be panting. However, he had a monstrous aura that truly looked down on the world and regarded the common people as ants and dust. Senior, we have no other choice. We swear that we won't take a step back. Yes. Eldest Princess Mou's expression was firm and her beautiful eyes emitted an incomparably cold light. Lin Yang, Fanggoyu and the others all revealed fear, but they gritted their teeth and persevered. At this moment Xianxia was not demonized, but what was the difference between him and a demon? He only had killing intent and ignored everything. He would rather destroy the common people to fight for a chance of survival. At that moment there was silence in the sky and on the ground. Everyone held their breaths and waited for the outcome of this battle. Saint Qianma gritted his teeth and stared at Xianxia nervously. Huang Linger's palms were drenched in cold sweat. Mou and the others were also fighting to the death. Sai. You forced me to do this. It's not my fault. Xianxia approached and was about to kill. Suddenly he looked at Xianxia, his eyes flashing with boundless shock. He's going to break the shackles? In the dragon pool. The lotus petals drifted and were stained with Xianxia's blood qi, reflecting a treasure light and revealing a magnificent crimson color. It was like a rain of tears, sad and beautiful. Xianxia sat under the six paths lotus tree like a Buddha under the Bodhi tree, a Tao sovereign under the starry sky. His eyes were closed and he didn't move at all. Only the divine treasures emitted a gentle and sacred light that made everything around him pale in comparison. This was an eternal scene. So many years had passed and the river of time had washed away all grudges and grievances. However, this scene would never fade from people's minds. It would forever be imprinted in their hearts. Around him, a murderous aura surged, blood flowed everywhere, and severed limbs were strewn all over the place. It was like a scene of Azura in the mortal world. However, the dragon transformation pool was very calm. Only the sound of falling flowers and flowing tree sap could be heard, sparkling as they drifted down piece by piece. A sweet fragrance wafted in all directions, releasing immortal spiritual energy. In that area, immortal light and auspicious colors pervaded the air, soaking Xianxia. Falling petals fell on Xianxia's body, as if they were bestowed by the immortal world. Crack, crack. Suddenly, the sound of intense friction rang out from Xianxia's body. It was like the sound of metal rubbing against each other. It was extremely ear-piercing and caused one's heart to palpitate. What's that? Suddenly someone exclaimed. Everyone looked over. At this moment, everyone saw that there were indeed countless divine chains of laws crisscrossing inside and outside of Xianxia's body. They extended to the endless void and pierced into the ground. Not only were there the chains of the Great Path, but there were also the bonds of karma that firmly bound him like ropes. These chains of laws, the chains of the Great Path and the ropes of karma were filled with the aura of the world, as if they were punishing him on behalf of the heavens. Each of them was formed by countless runes, as if they were indestructible and deeply rooted in the depths of his blood. They moved freely in his divine treasures, penetrated his shoulder blades and organs, and spread to the world, locking him tightly and preventing him from building his divine treasures and evolving his nascent soul into a god. Rumor has it that the mortal world of cultivation was once cursed by the heavens and carries the chains of the Great Path and the ropes of karma. Therefore, mortals, including the immortal cultivators among them, are weak compared to the immortal world and the divine world. They don't have the talent to become immortals. Everyone discussed in shock. This was the first time they had seen the suppression of the great path in a mortal's body. Looking at the divine chains that contained endless majesty, everyone almost knelt down and worshipped them. However, there were also void return saints hiding in the dark who gasped and said, in the entire divine origin world, no one in the last 100,000 years who broke through to the soul formation realm showed the innate shackles of the great path that bound mortals. But this guy did, which means that he's truly going to break free from the mortal world. What level of semi-god realm was he at? He's at least at the immortal soul formation realm or even higher. These were all people with discerning eyes, rich in experience, eyes like torches, seeing how extraordinary Zhang Tian was. Once Zhang Tian broke free from the shackles and entered the soul formation realm, he would be an unprecedented soul formation overlord who could look down on the world and dominate the world. Bang! 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 The sound of chains breaking was heard. A vast aura gushed out of Zhang Tian's body and shot into the sky. At this moment, Zhang Tian had broken the shackles and immediately soared into the sky like a dragon. Many people were even more shocked and disgusted. He broke the innate shackles and is about to reach the soul formation realm. Very few people can truly break the shackles. How many times has this sound been heard since the beginning of time? In the blink of an eye. All these changes and Zhang Tian's changes happened in a few seconds. Seeing this, the greed in Xia Zhangying's eyes became even stronger. This was the result of the sap and deity light in the dragon transformation pool. But at this moment, Zhang Tian's god and divine treasures hadn't taken shape yet, so it was still the best time to attack. Boom! Xia Zhangying couldn't wait to attack. She reached out her hand and grabbed at Zhang Tian like a dragon's claw. Kill. At this moment, Qian Mou and the others all rushed to the sky and attacked Xia Zhangying. Get out of my way. Xia Zhangying didn't show any mercy at all. She pushed her palm out like a mountain and many of the Eastern Empire's experts were all sent flying. Many people exploded in the sky and turned into ashes. Although Lin Yang Mou and the others didn't die, they were also heavily injured. Saint Qian Mo, who bore the brunt of the attack, was sent flying more than 100 miles. After defeating everyone, Xia Zhangying didn't stop at all and continued to close in on Zhang Tian. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. She wanted to kill Zhang Tian and take the Six Paths Lotus Tree for herself. She wanted to snatch the immortal fate and continue her path and extend her lifespan. At this moment, everyone's hearts were in their throats. Fang Guoyu held Lin Yang's hand tightly and broke out in cold sweat. Fang Jinlong and Lin Hanqing, the two good friends, were covered in blood and supported each other. They looked at each other anxiously. Saint Qian Mo clenched her teeth and tried to use her dermic powers to fight again. Huang Linger and Mou both attacked Saint Qian Mo with their swords. Zhang Tian was very close and it seemed like it was too late. At this moment, bang! In the sky, it was as if above the 9 heavens, above the immortal world, the most ancient domain of the gods burst out with a golden light. It was as if Hongmeng was opened up and the universe was born. That golden light was so magnificent, so bright and so dazzling. It was as if a star field had been ignited and could illuminate the universe. It was as if it could light up the 9 hells. At that moment, the endless demonic fog in the entire critical Grand Canyon dissipated. Countless demonic creatures and generals drilled into the demonic soil with fear. The deep space of hundreds of thousands of miles was illuminated with incomparable transparency, and no corner could be hidden. At that moment, the sound of the great Tao came from above the 9 heavens and resounded between heaven and earth, suppressing all other sounds. The divine sound was boundless, divine, lofty, boundless, and tangible. It was like a rainbow-colored ripple that could be clearly seen. It was extremely dazzling and possessed an indescribable charm as it reverberated through the entire Great Canyon.